whole universe couldn't fit down anyone's throat.
Oh yeah, that I don't know who said that.
It was Colin. Come on, writer. Welcome to the Secret Garden, 1993 specifically, because there's like 5 of them. So,
I forgot that this was a franchise that was rebooted
Are we in the
several
garden?
times.
yeah, it's from a very famous book from 1911. It's an oldie.
That's
Oh,
Top Gun.
Super.
that explains a lot of the writing. Doesn't change much of my opinion of it though.
Um, Having not read it, I don't know how faithful it is. But I'm today's host, Crimson Maroon.
As always, I am one of the co-hosts, a geeky writer.
And I'm Sprinks.
Yeah, and as mentioned, Secret Garden. This has been. We usually cover our experiences. I'll go first. This is a childhood movie for me. Doing this for the podcast, I watch it twice for notes and stuff, making it probably 7th time or so I've seen this movie. My sister and I watched it a lot, and we saw the sequel in air quotes because they just recast everybody. Return to Secret Garden. I don't really remember that one too well.
All right.
And, yeah, and I haven't seen the old ones, like the ones from the 80s and 40s. I don't remember which years. Those specifically, I haven't seen. I saw the trailer for the one in the 40s though, and it's old.
I believe the newer one has Colin Firth in it.
Oh yeah, and the new one that came out like a year and a half ago or something. Is that the Kingsman guy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he is in that. Ryder, what about your experience with this?
My experience is none at all. I've never heard of it before until I was asked to watch it for the podcast, and uh, yeah, no history whatsoever. So I went in blind.
Right. And Sprinks.
Have not read the book, have not seen any of these 5 movies, have not seen the newer one, have not seen the rebooted one, nothing. I have heard about it a lot though, and it always gets me confused with Secret Garden and Sophie's Garden. I flip-flop them. But now that I've seen this one, it's very easy to tell they are not the same.
I'm not aware of Sophie's Garden.
I believe it's called Sophie's Garden. I believe it's like, oh god, it's a book I think I read. Or Sophie's World,
It's Sophie's World that you're
Sophie's
thinking
World.
of.
Oh, okay.
Still never
Oops.
heard of it. Is it
Anywho,
as good as
yeah.
this?
It's
Air quotes on good, depending on who you
very
ask.
different. Very different.
It is a very, very different vibe, that book.
But yeah, no, so basically, pretty much the same with Ryder. I went in blind.
Which was one of my goals picking this. My primary goal of why I chose this film, though, is because it's not your conventional movie where there's not really a plot thread coming through this movie.
I would disagree with that, actually. I think there is a plot thread. It's just very, very thin.
Fascinating.
Well, there's nothing in the beginning that could build up to what the end would be, because the ending is pretty much like Colin and his dad, and most of this movie is more focused on character-driven progression than actual narrative plot.
The narrative plot thread that's established in the beginning that comes through to the end is a character trait for our main girl.
Yeah, so it's very bare bones, I think.
Yes.
Which is why I picked it, because I wanted to know your guys' thoughts on it. And I guess we'll dive into that when we actually cover it. I got a couple little facts. I usually don't bring up box office stuff. That's usually a Sprinks thing, but I looked it up. They had a budget of 18 million, and it made 31 million. So they made a profit, and they spent $180,000 on the garden. on making it.
Wow.
I mean, it definitely pays off. It is a beautiful garden. That
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
fantasy drama film. It's okay. All right.
Well, it's definitely drama.
I mean, that's the genre headline for it. I just looked it up because I was curious.
Yeah, fantasy. Interesting. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, that changes my perspective on some things going into this. But go on, Crimson. Sorry.
Yes. I mean that's well. Okay, I guess I'll bring up the costume designer got interviewed, and apparently there were intentions in costume design in this. I don't know if you guys caught it because you guys caught Mr. and Mrs. Smith, whether or not that was real or not, but you guys caught something there. Catch anything in this?
Actually, yeah. At least for color schemes, I did.
Okay.
Uh,
It was
Colin
very. It
wore
wasn't
very
as.
pale clothing and like I don't know, yellowish brown uh nightgown until he went outside and then he got more earthy colors.
Mhm.
I have a quote from the guy. He said, "Also, she had a wig on the whole movie. I didn't know that. Apparently, her hair was short, and they gave her a wig. Pretty good wig."
Huh.
I think
Um,
actually, the only time you know this because I think in the opening scene where she's being dressed, that's actually her. So you don't. She's not wearing a wig in that scene, is she? Because she has very short hair in that scene.
In the very beginning scene.
Yeah, when
uh,
she's being
was it tied
dressed,
back? I don't remember.
it's shown from the front, so I couldn't tell if it was tied back or not. But I mean, like that if there was gonna be a scene shot without her wig, I thought it was that one.
It's possible. Uh, I don't have the image to make for sure. Um, so the guy said her wigs were made lank and her clothes were drab, sad fabric, so they could hang in a dreary way as she awakens spiritually and begins to have enthusiasm for the garden and real life. Her clothes bounce up. So
Yep.
I, I didn't really notice her clothes got more bouncy, as he put it, but I guess there was intention there. And with that, we'll hop into the act system, starting
Oh,
from the beginning of the film to when Martha dresses her for the outdoors. Whoever wants to grab
Okie
something.
dokie.
sure.
I'll go. The lighting and sound effects during the war in India. Definitely. For 18, said 18 million was their budget.
Yeah,
Yeah, they could have done it way better.
well, it was an earthquake.
Oh, it
It
was an
If
wasn't a
that
earthquake.
war.
changes
Oh, I
anything.
thought it was a war.
No. There
They
was no
even
war.
scream earthquake.
Oh, there's like
But
flashing reds, which I thought were like bombs going off or something.
Yeah,
That
it was
was
an
an
earthquake.
earthquake.
Anyway, that could have been better.
Uh,
uh,
what about it? Could have been better, to you.
The quality. It seemed very. Um, it felt TV station quality, like sitcom um, set
yeah, yeah.
look.
This is a post Jurassic Park world, and post Star Wars world. So they definitely could have done something to make that better, I suppose.
Only thing I can
Um,
think of is that the room that was used when she's in India is barely in the movie, so the quality of that's okay, but just what they have access to, which didn't, which is interesting because I believe they have like lighting and sound effects throughout the film and other aspects of it, so I don't know why they'd started kind of weak.
yeah, I thought it was okay. It definitely isn't great. The thing I did like with the earthquake scene is there was this like enchanting music going on, and then it went to silence, and then you just hear someone yell "earthquake," and then everything starts happening. Um,
I suppose you should bring up the music now since you kind of alluded to it. The music is definitely like your cue of how you should feel about each scene.
mhm.
Uh, so not I guess can help narrow constructive. You construct your narrative and stuff like that since it's mostly a character journey that we're on here. Um, just bringing that up is like a something that I noticed very early on. Um,
Yeah, that they pretty much got their whimsical music and then they're like suspenseful music. It's kind of the two modes of music in this film,
mhm.
Yeah, you
and
got your
they definitely
fantasy
use them
music
intentionally.
and your drama music.
Nice one.
Yes. Um,
Uh,
I got another one. If
sure.
By all
Yeah,
means, go ahead.
yeah, for the one through line, like from beginning to end, like this was clearly the only. This is one of the few like threads that is throughout the whole movie. Is our main girl at the very beginning doesn't know how to cry, or she doesn't cry, which is, I guess, the through line they want us to care about from the beginning through to the end,
Yep.
because she learns to be more emotional, I suppose, or get more in touch with connecting with people that too, I suppose, because their parents are very they're not very committed to their raising their child.
No, they're for the party life and their job in the government. That was not specified. Um,
It felt
but yeah, she didn't even cry for her servants that presumably died, or she had to leave anyways because she liked her servants.
she
Mhm.
liked what they did for her. She didn't like them as a person.
I guess I don't know. I really,
Do you
it
think
was
she
just a
knew their
throwaway
names
line.
or
Uh,
just called them
uh,
servants?
she called them servants and then some Indian word that I didn't know. So
Uh, um, Abun? No.
yeah,
I do
I
not
didn't
know.
write it down. I didn't have subtitles, so I couldn't really tell what she said. But yeah, I don't think she ever names them. Uh,
I will say this whole kind of beginning part of leaving your home to go, I guess to England or yeah, it was the UK she went to. Um, with the name tags and being picked up, it felt very Narnia to me.
yeah, she went to Liverpool, England, 6 months after the earthquake. So I don't know what really happened during that 6 month span, unless that was travel time.
I can say for now, if Sinister was here for this episode, I guess his name is, he would definitely pull out his Liverpool joke. He
Oh,
loves that joke.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. I think 6 months is actually probably accurate for travel time because there's no airplanes back then in theory.
uh,
So
th- this does take place during 1901.
yeah, so airplanes are non well, yeah, airplanes are existent, but not to that capacity.
Well,
Uh,
didn't the Wright brothers make the airplane in 1903?
yeah, I
Well, that was
don't,
like
We had
single
cars.
use.
I don't
Yeah.
remember the, well,
So yeah, there were no planes yet in
No,
1901.
planes were
yeah,
like upper up, like high rich folk.
mm,
And they weren't
I
even
did,
made yet.
No, I
yeah,
mean when they
that's
came out. Yeah,
yeah. So I'm content 6 months is probably good for travel time because she had to take a boat, and while it wouldn't take a month, it would certainly take a fair bit of time, and I'm assuming a lot of the fares had to be given in order to,
Yeah, probably.
because it was a hefty time skip those 6 months. Uh, Everyone knows about her on this voyage to make fun of her. So
I know that must have been terrible 6 months. There was one kid who's like, "Hey, Mary, we made it," and that's all we hear. So I'm like, maybe she made a friend on that boat. I don't know.
yeah, hey friend.
And then later down the line, when she comes across Robin, she's like, "I never had friends before." I'm like, "Oh well, you just spat in
Guess
that
not.
girl's face."
Yeah, there's a lot of that. They try to. I'll bring up a couple examples as we go along, but I feel like that is an example of like they were trying to set something up and then do nothing with it. Uh, because
Oh,
that's happened. That happens more than once.
yeah, they definitely want Mary to feel isolated in this, and
Hmm.
that's definitely an element. Or she perceives she's alone all the time, even if she isn't necessarily alone.
Hmm.
I did
What
catch
do I?
a, I guess, continuity error.
Okay,
Um, gonna be honest, I don't remember most of the names of the characters in this movie, only for seeing it once. So I'll say Maggie Smith. Um,
Medlock.
when she's
Professor McGonagall.
uh, in the carriage taking her, she's eating like a chicken leg.
Mhm.
Um, between shots of the scenes, the chicken leg changes on shape and like how much is eaten out of it.
Yeah, pretty standard food continuity error. Because I don't know, it'd be weird if they ate it, shot it again, gave another leg. Like, all right, can you bite the exact same spot of this leg? I don't know if they typically pay that much attention. That is a continuity error. Speaking of that, right though, it was a pretty cool shot of the estate when they were riding in with the fog and everything.
Yeah, I like that shot. Not my favorite because there are a couple that I actually really like, but it was good. I like. It was a good establishing shot because it feels dreary, feels like the UK. So
For a
Yeah,
90s movie, or 93 was it? This came out?
yeah.
It reminded me of like older 70s and 60s Disney movies. Like of
Uh,
I don't know, like Candle Shoe, um Mary Poppins a little, um almost like the background's like a painting kind of thing.
uh, yeah, they definitely focus on the environment and stuff in this, which I kind of like. A lot of their establishing shots. They have a lot of wide shots as well, which
time lapses are
we don't
pretty
get too
cool
many
as
of those.
well.
I love the time lapses. um, must have been a pain in the neck
Oh
to
yeah.
orchestrate all this garden stuff. Time lapses, getting all those animals to cooperate. I know they had to reshoot a lot of stuff over and over and again because animals kept getting in the way or moving out of shot when they're not supposed to. You had to train a robin, I guess. Not not too many of those, I would imagine, to get.
Uh, Fair enough. I thought the Robin was CG. When she was when it was following her or leading her to the door,
Uh,
but I don't remember. It looked CG to me, but it was fairly well done. So
yeah, it was a real bird.
oh
Trying to
wow.
think, I don't think there was any CG in this, other than just your typical like fades when they were time lapsing stuff,
All right,
and that
then all the more impressive.
product of the time. Today, it probably would be a CG bird, not worth the hassle of training anymore. And the elephants in the beginning probably wouldn't be real now either. I think they did really well with the India scene in terms of the visual aesthetic, and just I guess this film as a whole. I thought everything looked of the period, and people acted like the period. Nothing
Yeah,
really took me out in those regards.
yeah, I can agree with that.
Does anyone else have a thing to pop out?
Let's see. Uh, this is more funny, not necessarily criticism. I did not realize Dickon was Martha's brother. The the boy that helps her in the garden and the
Mhm.
her friend the maid in quote
Uh,
friend.
yeah, while Martha's dressing her,
Yeah,
she
there's a
brings it up.
comment. Yeah. I wouldn't know that until I caught it today because it was I gave it a sort of another rewatch today while
Oh,
I was cleaning. So
was
wasn't
this in the
taking any notes
background?
this time. Yeah, just
Nice.
wanted it in the background because there was definitely some stuff I about this movie that I needed to think about it more just because it's a very odd movie in that you as you've stated. So I felt another rewatch, or at least what I could get of another rewatch in was probably in order. So
Yeah. and I think they do a pretty decent job with character introductions in this.
Hmm.
Like Mrs. Medlock right out the gate. She's like, "What a queer, unresponsive little thing." She didn't get her mom's looks, and right out the gate being pretty harsh.
Yeah, talking about her like she's not there, that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
and Mary herself, at this point, understand her pretty well while she's still in her brat phase. Anyways, and Colin is pretty quickly characterized. Um, Dickon is probably the plainest character in this. I think he doesn't
Yeah,
have much character outside "I'm Nature Boy."
yep. Which is fine. It's serviceable for the film. So,
Yeah. Let's see. Would I kind of know Sprinks' thoughts, but both can cover this either way. What do you think about her air quotes not knowing how to dress herself?
I Well, I don't think it's necessarily not knowing. I think it's more of not supposed to. Like that's just how she's raised. She hasn't done it herself, but she she probably knows how.
I just say she doesn't know how because she said it.
um,
um,
Entitlement.
yeah, it could definitely be read either way. I never, I just, I took it literally, but I don't because I at this point I'm still trying to learn more about the character and stuff like that. So I took it literally when she meant that. But I can see it either way because I mean, yeah, she's never dressed herself before, and she views that as a lowly servant thing to do, and she is a brat more or less. So I can buy that part of it is like she doesn't want to do it herself, like she doesn't want to lower herself to do that. So it could
okay.
be read either way.
All right. I wasn't sure if you guys thought it was justifiable in her actions as a character, if it was just stupid.
I mean,
So
like I said, there's the aspect to it of where like yeah, I've watched someone dress me for however old I am, so she would know how. It's just at least to a certain degree. Like maybe for the fancier clothing, like she has to tie a bunch of things together. Probably doesn't know how to do. I'll give her that. So uh, I guess it just kind of depends.
all right. It was so something that the director wanted out of this was to capture a feeling they had as a kid where um, just going outside was fun and whimsical to them. And I feel like they captured that pretty well in this, even with like the secret door going to the aunt's room. There's a lot of childhood exploration stuff in this. Kind of felt comfortable to me because I kind of had that a lot where I went out. I had my own wasn't secret garden, but my secret forest spot. Um, it's
Yeah.
always fun to find nook and crannies and stuff as a kid.
Hmm.
Did
Um,
you guys have a secret garden?
No, I don't think I
uh,
No.
had a secret garden.
I used to. I had one at my near my home house, and then I had one at my grandparents' house. So I had two, uh, but the one at my grandparents' house is more uh, secluded, I suppose. Would be the word for it. So I would say that he definitely caught the intention, captured that feeling, I suppose, of the wonderment of going outside for a child. That was very plain for me to see it, I think. So.
And when she finds the secret door, which I feel like Medlock should have known was there,
Oh,
because
absolutely. I mean, she
we don't
finds it
know how long
instantly.
Medlock has worked here, but I feel like she worked here when the aunt was alive. I don't think there was anything to back that up, so I think she should know that.
Yeah,
If she was hired on after the aunt died and that room was locked away and hidden, then I guess she wouldn't. But it still seems a little iffy.
Yeah, it'd be if you just because she walks all the way through the mansion, she would check she would find the exit of where that secret door comes out to eventually.
Yeah,
But in nature,
she's kind of like head servant, I guess. Not
yeah,
actual like grunt work servants.
yeah,
Because there's 100 rooms. It's not like she's cleaning all 100. Um,
yeah. It feels like that's left to the rest of the staff, and her main focus is just Colin.
yeah. I guess it's okay. There's some wiggle room, but still questionable.
Mhm.
Uh, how run down the ants room and the hallways are. Pretty run down for just 10 years, but uh, I guess a
Yeah,
lot of stuff do that, kind of like Edward Scissorhands as well. But I don't remember the
yeah.
time frame in that.
What
For
of
the
his
aunt,
mansion?
Yeah,
so you mean the aunt's room, like when she goes to explore and find?
yeah, and finds the other elephant and the key.
Yeah. Um, is this supposed to be an instance of magic? I've been meaning to. I might as well ask this because, as she says, like they have the same dresser, the same drawers, and like same furniture, that sort of thing. So like, is that literally the same? Because that would be impressive. Or is it
Just,
supposed to be like a recreation?
um, I'm confused. Are you saying they aren't twins, or what? I'm
Oh, no, 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 no,
confused
no,
by
no.
the magic
Uh,
element here.
so the magic element is just that, like, I don't know if the house spawned this room for her.
Oh, a room of requirements.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of, because it's very, very convenient that they have all the same furniture. Sure, they could just have the same tastes, but it, I don't know. I'm just asking because it felt 50-50 to me, so I wanted to get opinions on it.
no, I don't think there's any magic there other than the wind prompting her to go take the staircase up. Because
Okay,
there's a lot to wind in this, which I'll bring up every time there's an instance if we're talking about a scene where it's relevant. But wind takes her in a lot of directions to progress stuff. So
okay,
the wind going up the stairs, blowing leaves and stuff with the pigeons, I think is a magic element or supernatural element, um,
I'd
for sure.
lean more in the supernatural being ghost thing than magic in this movie.
Well, might as well cover it now, since writer does potentially have a time constraint here on cutoff. Um, magic. What are your thoughts on magic in this, if there are any at all?
Well,
We'll start with writer.
oh, okay,
Or
never mind.
Sprinks,
Zip.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say with the genre classification of fantasy, I think it adds into the point that there is more intentional magic, or thought to it. Um, I wouldn't really call it magic though. It's something beyond, to my knowledge, a presence, which is like the wind. I don't even know if it's like unlocking doors because there are keys that need, but like she can kind of get away anywhere with all the secret passages. Um, but like just a guidance, something to point her in the direction of things, is some being that I don't know. I don't know if it's the the mom. I think Colin's mom or something. There's some dream sequence with a mom, and I don't know if that's the being that's like pointing her around. I don't know if it's her parents that are pointing her in the right direction. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's the bird, unless the bird's something else, some other reincarnation of someone. But I don't
Yeah,
think it's nothing. And if it is
the
nothing, then I think it's worse.
yeah, the lady in the dream that you brought up, she says is her mom, but since they're twins, it could be the aunt. Um, but don't know for sure. But she claims that was her mom in that dream sequence. Um, I don't know why she ran away, but we'll probably cover that when we
Okay. I think
can.
I might lean more on it being the aunt because it seemed her own parents didn't really pay much attention to her as, as a kid, but the aunt is passed away with Colin and the uncle in the house, so she might just haunt, or quote unquote haunt or be, within the confines of the house.
Mhm.
So she could have just like thought like it was her mom because they're twins. But
And what about you, Ryder?
Uh, I think this is a textbook softcore magic system, meaning we're not supposed to understand it at all. Like the rules are very ambiguous because I I mean the main thing is obviously the whole idea they're casting a spell to summon their dad back um at the end. That's obviously the biggest point to me that I think is it's just a softcore magic system. So I do think magic exists, and because they classify it as fantasy, I just feel more inclined to agree with that. Um, because yeah, software magic systems are supposed to be very ambiguous. You're not supposed to understand. You're rarely going to understand the rules of how the software magic systems work, but they still are usable enough. But they still uh are useful to tell a story, pretty much. And if there
Okay.
are rules, they're very very limited.
Yeah,
So
for me, I don't think there's magic in this. I think it is more leaning towards supernatural ghost stuff. Because
which is magic,
well,
to a
kind
degree.
of debatable. Um, like the only things I can see is the wind guiding her, and the chant or whatever that they did was it didn't literally summon him. We cut to the ant in the garden, kind of like this ethereal setting with like
Yeah.
blurred out
So
sides of the frame.
it's either very convenient or
Oh,
it reminded
yeah,
me. I have in my
we get
notes
the
written
ant.
down of Sauron using his chant and fellowship to get the rock giants. Felt like that to me.
Sure,
uh
I don't remember that. I might have slept during that part.
neither do I. What are you talking
When he's on top of Isengard and he's like calling out
about?
to.
Oh, he's just calling down the storm to destroy the mountain or whatever. At least that's what I remember. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Softcore, same. Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue on the Lord of the Rings stuff, but yeah, it cuts to her in the garden and she's calling for him. So I'm like, okay, so the ghost is getting his attention, which is convenient. I agree. Why didn't she do that earlier? Blah 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 blah. If it truly is her, um, but yeah, I just view it more as ghost than actual magic in this.
Okay.
Maybe we'll find more out while we go along. Might sway things. What else do we have in here? We get the meeting of Colin. Are you a ghost? Are you a ghost? No. Uh,
Uh,
what do you think?
I do like that she pinches him like on instinct, and I thought I was amused by that because that's a very kid thing to do. There, you're not dreaming. See, very literal.
I found it funny when she pinched him. He's like, "Ow!" and then he smiles at her like he enjoyed it. Kind of funny.
Mhm. Uh,
I believe this was Colin's first movie acting, but Mary was in a couple of shows apparently.
mhm.
I haven't seen her in anything outside of this.
The way.
Yeah.
Spring,
But
go ahead.
I was gonna say the way Colin acts. I don't know if it's just fitting to the time period it is in, but this thought process of cousin cuddling is creepy.
I
Especially,
mean, it's definitely of the period, if that's the case. In the
Targaryens were brother and sisters for centuries.
um, I don't think in the beginning here there's any connection like that, but that definitely blossomed into something later. Will you marry me? Or I want to marry you at some point, whatever.
Well,
It does get into
there's a few instances of
interesting
that.
stuff.
Yeah. Um, but like I said, the movie drops it, so That's one of those instances that I would point to where they introduced an element and then just dropped it
Yeah. I
either
believe
because they
Colin got even a bit jealous later
oh,
when they're in the garden.
I
Hey,
would say a bit. It was very clearly
it was
uh
pretty amusing because it was his idea to put them on the swing for photos.
yep. And then, he realized his mistake.
Yep.
um
See,
let's see.
in regards to conveniences, it is also convenient that she found the key in the aunt's room that
I
quickly.
I assume that she had searched the room off screen just by the virtue of like we cut to her pretty much finding the ivory elephant instantly or during like just walking around the room. I assume because she's just you don't try to lock up a child in a room, and I'll get to medlock a little bit later probably, but there's a lot of like expectations that she's gonna stay put, and obviously she doesn't. So I'm more than willing to buy that she searched the room, so it wasn't instant. We just happened to cut in when she found it.
Okay, so you want to throw him a bone? All right,
Yeah.
I'll bite.
I mean, like because she's had been in the room previously, and then there she is again. So I figured once she learned it was her aunt's garden from the old man, I assumed that would just prompt her to search for the first thing she knew to associate with her, which would be the aunt's room.
Well, I mean, she found the key before she found the garden.
Oh, did she?
Yeah,
Okay.
she found the key when she found the elephant.
Oh, okay. Then
Then she finds the garden, sees the keyhole, then heads to the house to grab the key because she knows where it is.
okay. Then I missed the key part. I was more focused on the ivory elephant.
I don't know if it was
Uh,
in this act or another one. When does she start um or tries to do skipping rope?
that's the next act.
Okay, never mind then.
Uh,
Yes.
I guess I will bring up. Is there anything else for this act?
Let's see.
Not for me.
Uh, going through my
I did.
notes.
I did look it up to see if there was an earthquake in India in 1901. None recorded. So
Crimson, it's a fantasy drama.
well, I was just curious. Apparently, they didn't record earthquakes below a six back then. So there could have been. It's just not recorded.
Okay.
uh, she's found the garden gate at this point,
Uh,
and has at least
no,
seen.
no, she hasn't gone outside yet.
I might be getting stuff out of order. Let's see.
Ryder, your notes are upside down.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, certainly feels like it. Um, Uncle won't see her. Uh,
Oh, your uncle's decided not to see you today.
mhm.
She was all dressed up for it too. And
Oh,
what do you think of Craven, the Lord, and his
um,
reasonings for not seeing? I guess either of them technically, but
to put it as sarcastically as I put it in my notes, what a kind and caring father.
can't stand to look at him.
Uh, yeah, he's definitely a broken man. I I got that, but it's um it comes with a lot of I could talk about how the dialogue for this movie is written. There's a lot of what I call dialogue that could be meaningful if the story was expanded and like we were going to stay with these characters for long periods of time. But otherwise, sometimes I find it to be like not boring is not the word. It's just it lacks substance that makes it worthwhile. Uh, and I would say of all the dialogue in the film, I'd say Lord Craven's has the most relevant dialogue. I think of all the characters, like because he's not in it for very long, so every line of dialogue he has is much more relevant to everything that's going on and very important.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas with everyone else, some of the time it's I feel like it's filler. It's not necessarily bad, but it's just is what it comes across as to me.
Yeah, I guess I was interested to see if you guys would think this movie was boring when I picked it. Was it boring at all to either of you?
At all? Yes.
Um, yes, at times it was boring. Um, like I said, hmm, so because I'm so character driven as a writer, so like I want to just sink my teeth into characters most of the time. That's what tends to hold ratings up. And when you have characters you can make a good story out of, but you're not utilizing them to the best ability that you can, I I tend to lose interest. So by definition, I was getting bored in some elements of the film, but it pulled me back several times too. It was just a matter of like I was always teetering, which is why what I feel still about the movie. Um, I was always teetering on like between the possibility of being good and then falling once again. I'm getting bored again. Um, it was a regular occurrence for me. So
And I guess the last thing for me to bring up this act is Martha. Haven't really talked about her. Very energetic and semi hard to understand
yeah,
individual.
takes those insults in stride.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have notes about Martha. Like I don't understand the through line for her character arc other than arc. I'm putting this in quotes, by the way.
yeah. I was
I
gonna say I
don't
don't think she had one.
I don't think she had one, and I'm definitely missing the element of like something. I guess I'm missing like her connection to Medlock because all she does ever is worry her that Medlock will fire her for the most of the movie, and all she does is have a brat yelling at her. So she takes a lot of things in stride. Um,
Yeah, her.
I
Continue.
I don't really have much more to say
Oh,
about her other than she's a
yeah, her
very particular character. So.
her connection to Medlock is that her mom got her in a position where she can work out of the kitchen, and she wants to keep that position. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, Spriggs, what do you think of Martha? Or at least
Um,
her introduction?
I I think in the position of the mansion, and without um, the new girl here, um, I think she's developed her character of taking insults and whatnot with keeping her chin up, because I'm sure there's a lot of times she'll be a little clumsy or not do something that um, need to be done the way it should have been done or whatever. So I think she's kind of adapted around that, um, to still keep her job, but take insults as sometimes compliments or whatnot. So I think her first introduction um, is fitting in that regard.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It does do a good job of informing you of what she's like as a person. Um, because Medlock is pretty much insulting her most of the film. Uh, or either
Threatening
asking her
her, and
for help.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, that's fitting, I suppose, as well for her beginning in the story.
Yeah, she's very goofy.
I do like
Would
her
you like to
accent.
wear black or black or black? Are you blind? They're all black. And then oh, there you are, Miss Mary. She had the turtleneck covering her face.
Yes.
Good sense of humor. But other than that, I'm done with the act, guys.
Yeah, as am I.
Done. All
Act
right.
two.
Act two. Mary goes outside to see the garden and ends at the end of Colin's meeting, which we kind of talked about Colin already a little bit.
Yeah, I think this has one of my favorite camera shots, is which is when she first opened the garden and you can see like the overgrowth of trees like making the path. I'm a
Yeah,
sucker. I'm a sucker for those kind of shots, and I think in this film it was actually more impactful almost because of the whole childlike wonder of going outside and things like that they were going for, and this really helps nail that feeling on the head.
yeah. I think the anything really revolving around the garden was pretty good shot wise, and I don't know. Do you guys think the garden was utilized enough,
No,
or it should have had more of a presence?
I think it definitely needed more of a presence for being the name of the movie. What
Okay.
percentage of scenes or part do you think this movie took place in the garden?
Mm,
I'd say like 13%,
15%?
15.
I would
Sure.
say 10 to 15. That's justifiable for a name. I I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think it was enough because I don't know. It's kind of just a setting, and it's kind of reminiscent of her character
I
growth
think it
and all
just
that.
needed more
There's a lot of
purpose.
symbolism stuff with it.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know,
mean, the purpose was
what would
mostly
you
the
want out
symbolism.
of it?
Um, Maybe Medlock goes in there to like go get her, or she tries to escape to go there and maybe has a scene more to herself in there. Um, some other character without her um, is about the secret garden. Just
Yeah.
Well, the
more
groundskeeper knew
character.
about it.
The groundskeeper knew about it, but we don't have a scene of like him in there, or just walking around, maybe thinking about like the dead aunt, or something like that. I think it needed more connection to other characters than just the main little girl.
I would, if I were to keep it a little Mary centric, I would have wanted another scene of her being there by herself. I think would have been also a good choice to if we're gonna run with this and want to utilize it more. Mary should have been in there at least once by herself, because I think that would add more to the whole she feels alone aspect. And then, uh, the boy Dickon was in there as well, by himself because she runs in, he's already in there like planting seeds and stuff.
True, but there's no
So
scene of just him.
yeah, no, there's no scene of just him. I'll agree with that. But like, so we know that other characters go in there, which is nice, but yeah, it could be utilized in that way. So I'm not entirely against
And
the idea.
earlier on, I believe you stated that it could be a problem that Medlock didn't know about the garden. Um,
N- No, the ants room.
oh, the answer. Never mind. My mistake then. Didn't know about the answer.
Because I think everybody knows about the garden, which is just Mary's bad at keeping secrets. She,
Well, I mean, everyone knows that the garden belonged to the aunt, so I'm assuming everyone just knows because of that. It's not that she's
well,
bad at keeping
there's that
secrets.
regard, but she told Dickon, she told Colin, she
Did
talked to the groundskeeper about it, even though obviously he already knew about
Oh
it.
yeah, the secret was being spread. Was there anything stated by the uncle, Craven,
Told Martha.
to say don't touch anything of my dead wife's? Like don't go to her room, don't go to her garden,
No,
don't
Nope,
tend to any of that.
nope. She never
Okay,
said anything against it. Yeah.
because I'm like it seems like these servants and cleaners are very uptight, very well done and mannered to make sure everything's taken care of. So it's a little odd that there's rooms that are,
He,
very worn down or
yeah, he might just be avoiding going in there, and as an affectation, the servants took that as subtle orders not to touch anything regarding those areas as well. But there was nothing ever literally said from him to prevent people from going in. Other than
okay.
that, we know that the garden was locked up and put away
well,
because he did that.
yeah. Are we talking about the garden or the ants room right now?
Both, because they're both
Oh, okay.
untended.
Because he did order the garden to be locked down,
Yes.
um, and I always assumed, uh, in regards to the ants room, it kind of went that way as well. he just doesn't want to acknowledge anything the aunt was involved in her room and her garden. So
Okay.
that I'm fine with the employees not touching. Because we didn't see any other rundown rooms, did we? It was pretty much just the
I don't
aunt's
think there was anything
area.
else of importance to show. That was another rundown room. No,
So at least
but
we
I
know the
would
servants do their jobs.
I would believe that there are other rooms than just the ants room in the secret garden that aren't touched.
Uh, Without seeing it, I can't really back it. There's 100 rooms. We know that there's at least a dozen employees here
Oh
at
yeah,
the bare minimum.
yeah. The whole I don't know breakfast, just the whole kitchen. Seeing them
Yeah,
all
the
work in the
kitchen
kitchen
staff.
had yeah. Um,
Uh,
earlier I brought up about the skipping rope. I think it was a nice detail that they never showed her feet. They never showed her actually jumping or using it, which could be that she didn't know how, which isn't not just a character thing to show, but being that she didn't have like a full body shot of using the jump rope, I think helps.
I mean, you can tell from the movements that she is stepping over the rope almost. Like she's tangling it on her back foot when she's trying to jump over it. Like you can tell based on just her body movement that's what's happening. But so it works in that way that she has no idea how to do it, but she also wants to learn it, and
Did
it's a
it show
gift. So
Martha using it?
it did show. I think it did show Martha
yeah,
using it, right?
yeah. Martha used it to show Mary how to use it.
But did it show? I don't remember it showing the full body of Martha either.
I think it was shins up, but it showed her actually jumping the rope, so you
Yeah,
know her legs are going over
yeah,
the rope.
with her body movement, you can tell she was going over it, but with Mary, she wasn't because it was her first time. So there is a through line there that we didn't necessarily need to see.
Okay.
And then we also see Mary jump rope with the groundskeeper as well. I think that one you get to see her feet. Um, so there's that. 'Cause she's running towards him while skipping rope.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Mhm. I guess more elements for the wind is Mary was just walking around and you see the shrubs and there's kind of like two on the sides kind of forming a doorway and then behind it is a wall of ivory or whatever and the wall of ivory behind those two blew with wind but not the two in front of it, which shows to me that it isn't just wind, it's directed wind. She got
Mhm.
pointed in that direction. So she then looks at the wind, goes to it, and then sees the robin, and then sees the statue and all that stuff. Which
Mhm.
just an interesting element with the wind.
I guess one thing I thought was interesting. I still don't know how to feel about it. Just because I wasn't sure of what happened. But her and Jacon sing the rhyme that all the kids did to make fun of her. Like it's the same
Mary,
rhyme.
Mary, quite contrary.
Yeah. Um, I still don't know how to feel about that because I, I mean, like I get that she's connecting with someone, but also she has a very, very bad history with the song. And while I'm happy for a character to take ownership of something that was once insulting to them, there needs to be, I guess, more substance for me here in regarding for her suddenly just being okay singing it, especially because she hears it out of Dickens' mouth first.
I would agree, but I feel like Mary's someone who that stuff just kind of like rolls off of her, right?
Um, she's more used to
She,
being.
she doesn't really take in insults and is sad about it. She takes in insults and then blasts who's ever insulting her in her eyes. So
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. I was just, like I said, it still felt off to me. I don't know how to articulate what was wrong, and that was just me speculating. Because
mhm.
I agree that it's probably more in character for her to blast an insult right back, but she doesn't do that. She just starts singing in the song.
Well, yeah, she has no reason to get mad at him about it. He's not making fun of her for it. Um, she just explains to him that that was used to make fun of her, and uh, I think
Okay.
it was okay. But I guess through some lenses it could be odd.
It was odd to me. Like I said, it's one of those things I just wanted some feedback on because I still don't really know how to feel about that. So
I don't know, I just see it more as a growth that didn't affect her.
yeah, I'm also trying to pinpoint where she stopped being bratty in the film because she does like slow down. Like her
I think it was
mostly once it was pretty much once she meets Colin, so Colin had more like character room to breathe
yeah.
because he took over the brat aspect of everything. Um, and
When
Yeah,
she
I don't know if there was a definitive moment because I feel like it was gradual. It
yeah,
was never
no,
like,
no.
"And Mary's a good girl now."
No, 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 no. Yeah, I agree. It was very gradual. I'm just trying to pinpoint like those moments. It became noticeable obviously when Colin was introduced.
Yeah, because
Uh
even with him, they were both bratty towards each other in the
yeah.
beginning as well.
I
Yeah.
think when she started learning that Colin could have a purpose of, getting out of bed and doing stuff is when she became more or became less bratty, became
Okay.
more helpful.
Yeah, maybe after she saw the garden had life with the wick and all that stuff, and learning that stuff.
Maybe there's a change in clothing that I missed.
That's possible. I didn't notice it while watching, so
That could be
I
it.
don't know how drastic it is.
Did her outfit change colors instead of from blacks and grays?
From her assassin wear to her daily wear.
Oh, there we go.
You guys catch on that. Let's see. Anyone got anything for Act Two?
Let's see. Act 2.
Ending with the cover. Oh, they say the name of the movie.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you got to keep it a secret. It's better this way.
The
Uh,
groundskeeper is quite an animal handler. I have that written down.
the groundskeeper.
Yeah, I guess that was
It's
just with
kind
the
of
bird.
more Dickens stuff.
I mean,
Dickens, the animal whisperer. Do you think there's magic to that? With Dickens magic?
Maybe it's for Deacon.
riding a pale horse in an earthy uniform. There was some symbolism there, but
He talked to the robin.
Mm, yeah, I don't think I have anything other than Colin's introduction as a character is really well done. Like he asks her to come down and he immediately starts trying to fix his, you know, how he looks.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a female my age
yeah,
who's
pretty
not a
much.
ghost.
Yeah.
Do you
And
think?
then the whole smiling too much on the painting, or whatever the portrait. He thinks his own mom smiled too much.
Mhm.
Um,
Do you think the
I guess
comment because of Colin that he's actually experienced seeing ghosts before?
Uh,
I mean, okay, this is gonna be a very, very big stretch, but when the whole comment of the asking if she's a ghost, like in the like upper stair area,
mhm,
I immediately thought of Long Day's Journey into Night, the play, um, because there's a moment in that play where a ghost in a white dress kind of walks by at some point during a very, very deep discussion. And it's not really a ghost, I should say. It's more of a person that's sleepwalks, but it's still a very, very terrifying and horrifying thing in the right setting for the play.
mhm.
Um, so that's kind of I don't know why my mind went to that when I saw this scene, but I thought more about it, and I think they have very similar intentions, even though this one is more innocent and childlike wonder. Uh, and like I said, this is gonna be a stretch. It's because Mary feels like a ghost, because of everything that's happened. She doesn't know where she fits in. She feels like she's an outsider, so she is involved with other people's lives to the point of where she's meaningless. Like the first thing everyone does when she wakes up is shove her outside to so they all can get to work, so they don't have to worry about her, which I think
Mm.
adds to that whole theme. Yeah, I said the T word. But
Pirates.
yeah,
Ha ha ha.
so I think that's kind of what I was going for with that. Um, and whether it's a comment on the literal ghost, he's got issues. Clearly, I assumed he was bedridden just purely because of depression.
Well, that's something to cover. Do you guys think he was actually disabled?
No,
No, not by the end. He's considering.
Obviously, by the end.
I think he had weak legs, and maybe at like an early age, he just couldn't walk get to the stage of walking as other toddlers or whatnot. So they thought it was actually a big problem. Um, because in this day and age, they didn't have like X-rays or anything, so it was just the capability of what a human could do. Um, and I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
assume
the
his legs just
electro
atrophied.
I don't think the electroshock therapy was helping.
No, that's a quack machine.
Uh,
Um,
Um,
but yeah, I think if they actually just tried harder to get him to actually walk and progress in life, he would have been at it way sooner than just keeping him bedridden because of something way in the past.
yeah.
okay. Yeah, that was a topic for potential magic. Is if the garden caused him to walk, or if he could always walk.
I don't think the garden had anything to do with it. I think the garden was just a area of
It was
like
it was an
happiness.
inspiration piece.
Yeah, they
It
didn't
was an
do it in the
inspiration
hallways.
piece. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So, I would absolutely believe that Collins probably had ghost experiences. But then again, I've also lived in, or at least stayed the night in giant estate mansions that are old. So,
Yeah, I would imagine there's some eeriness to a big empty place.
absolutely. That's why Amnesia is my favorite game.
Um, this is where we also get the dream sequence, which as a kid always creeped me out. I think the music played is really good during this part and feeling for it. I don't really know what this memory is because I'm going to assume it's a memory and not just a random dream of her walking through the garden crying and either the mom or aunt running away.
It.
Huh.
I'm gonna guess it's. I'm gonna guess it's not a memory because if she lived her whole life in India, and in what we know part of India, I don't know if there's anything that green in such splendor where she was.
Well, being that young, she could have visited the aunt and not remember as a kid, obviously.
I mean, that's true. I mean, that's the only other way I would take it is if it is a memory, it would have to be she visited. But
If it's a
I, ass-
dream, what's the symbolism then? Because there has to be a reason to show this.
um, the next day doesn't her. I'm sorry, the next day, but like the scenes after doesn't her uncle give her permission to garden?
And is that the next scene? Oh, no. Did I jump ahead in the story? I might have. Oopsies.
Crimson.
Sorry, I saw a dream in my notes. It was something else. Maybe. I got 3 pages to read. I don't know where that is anymore.
Mhm. Uh, I think that's the dream you're referring to in your notes. So.
Yeah, the crying baby. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's. I mean, if it is, what do you think the relevance is for it?
Well, the relevance being is just because things are in motion for the garden to be hers. So the whole open invitation to follow her into the garden is part of it, just because that's what ends up happening. Like the uncle gives her permission to garden, essentially.
Oh, so you think whoever was running, aunt or mom, was inviting her into the garden? That's what that was.
Yeah, it's kind of
Okay,
it
yeah.
was. At least that's how I took it. despite all the dark music and everything, or like the eeriness attached to it.
She looked like she was scared. She ran away though. It didn't
Yeah,
look like "come and join me" or anything.
it was.
She looked
It,
scared.
it looked more like open invitation. It's up to you. You have to do this on your own, sort of thing. But the garden is there. But it is a dream, so it's very fucking ambiguous.
Yeah. Uh, well, that's pretty much what I got for this act.
um, yes, I think that's it for me as well.
And it's it for me. Other than, I mean, you did state that Colin kind of a little later on became more of the attracted to Mary, but it when she came down as a ghost, he was already changing his look to look more appealing. So
Well,
Yeah,
upon I don't know if it's something of the period, but first time I saw it for the podcast, I thought he was like checking his hair and stuff. But when I
I
watched
think
it
he was just
again
trying. I
for
genuinely think he's just
notes,
trying.
he was checking his eyes and then he sniffed something. So I don't know what he was necessarily doing.
I
Because
genuinely
if you're
think
checking your eyes, I don't know how that would really do anything.
I genuinely just checking. I think he was just trying to quickly make himself look a little bit more presentable. That's all I got from that. Because he's combing his hair and doing, among other things.
yeah, I agree.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that leans towards romantic interest. Sprinks just right off the bat. You just met her. Um,
Yeah, but you
uh,
don't really like love at first sight
Oh,
stories, so
I think he would have just
I don't
played
think this
more
was
of
love at
the.
first sight.
Well, I think
no,
he
it's
would have
not.
played
But
more of the sick kid role then. Wouldn't care about his appearance.
Well, like I said, I
well,
don't
he's
necessarily
head of
think it
the house.
was.
He's head of the house, so I'm assuming he was trying to look presentable. Not necessarily need to fix his appearance, but he needs to look better than he did. He's talking to a stranger, and he is master of the house when his uncle's not there, as we learn.
True.
So that to me is enough to justify the fact that he wants to just look more presentable, even if it's temporary.
Hmm. Uh, Act 3, staff making breakfast, to when Colin wants to go outside. So when he's in his chair on the stairs, whatever.
All right, I do want to talk about. I think this is the act of my favorite shot, and it's the uncle walking down the stairs with the lamp.
Okay.
That's just my favorite. My favorite shot in the whole movie, just because it looked great. The playing with shadows was wonderful.
Do you think? Well, actually, I think they do pretty well with lighting in this, even in Colin's introduction, his room being dark and stuff, but well lit at the same time. Pretty good.
Mm.
But in regards to the scene you're referencing, do you think every time he leaves, he goes to see him, or he just saw him because that was after he met Mary and wanted to see what he looked like?
I don't know. The film was very ambiguous about that. I can see the argument either way.
Okay.
I being the person I am would prefer that this is a character trait of him. Like he still checks in on his son, but he doesn't want to. At this point, he doesn't know how. Like, because there's a could be a facet of this where he doesn't know how to communicate with his son anymore and like connect with him, so he just doesn't. But he still wants to check in and make sure he's okay or at least alive.
I think he checks in more with Medlock on how his son is than actually his son.
So you think this was a one-time occurrence?
I don't think one time, but definitely a rarity.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he does this every time, like every night or anything. I think he does this at least once every visitation he makes to the vet.
Okay.
Why,
Yeah,
Crimson? Do you believe something else?
no, I couldn't tell either way, so I was hoping you guys would sway me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, it's very ambiguous. So
I mean, we only see it
Okay.
once here. It isn't a reoccurrence or a different event, or
Yeah.
and he
Yeah, I
doesn't
was
say
curious if
anything
you guys
either.
would see it in his character at
The
one way or the other.
the line of dialogue, the only line of dialogue that implies that he does this more often than once, he's like, "Oh, my sweet boy." He whispers to himself pretty much in that scene. He's like, "My," because he definitely, the actor does a good job. He's able to play very, very worried but distant. That's why I got the impression he just doesn't know how to connect with him, which is why I think this isn't a one-time occurrence. Um, just because I thought the desperation in his voice and like still loving but distant was enough to sell to me that this is not a one-time occurrence. He does do this if it's not, even if not with regularity, it's definitely a rarity. Um, but this is not the first time he's done this.
Then I'll go with that route. Makes him better for me. That it is not his first time seeing him since he was a baby. That would be pretty bad for him. We get to see the stop motion bulb here, and I think it's pretty cool how they
The
implemented it.
the
The
time
time
lapse,
lapse. Yeah.
yes.
Did I say stop motion? What did I
Yes.
say?
Uh,
Yeah, you
Darn
said
it!
stop
I
motion. That,
did that
that,
with Sinister yesterday when I talked to him.
I'm like, I was trying to recall in my memory where the heck stop motion in this movie
yeah,
was.
Because the roots looks like stop motion, but yeah, time lapse.
yeah. I mean, yes,
It's
it
really
does
cool.
look like really cool stop motion, but time lapse was
Yeah.
really good, and I think that they clearly put effort into it, and it pays off. It was nice. It was not the one of those things that always brought me back in if I felt being I was bored. I wasn't bored because I saw the scene before this was the uncle thing. So
Uh, yeah, and I think it adds to the whimsicalness of the garden, all these time lapse moments.
yeah,
Because if they just showed it like, and spring came around, and then they just do like a pan of the garden, would not nearly be as impactful as seeing the garden grow.
yeah, I think I remember because the time lapse thing, she runs to the garden and they plant the roots or whatever, and then she gives the whole like spring came to the manor. I thought I because it shows the time lapse right after she plants, roughly right after they plant the roots and the seeds. I'm like, okay, is this? I wrote in my notes, is this a time lapse or is this real time? And then I
Yeah,
learned, obviously later I went back and realized to make sure that it was a time lapse because it happens again, and they show everything this time. So
uh, yeah. That as a kid, I always viewed that as being instant and like magic plants. But as an adult, I could say I do think it's just a time lapse.
it definitely adds to the fantastical element because I was an adult my first time watching. I wasn't actually sure if it was a time lapse or real time. So it definitely adds to a fantastical element for sure.
And Mary puts it in upside down originally. You got plants in India. Come on. No, I'm not going to falter for that. Anyone got something to jump to? If not, I can always shoot something.
I thought it was a little of time now, uh, when they're wearing masks around Colin. It was a little COVID connection.
It's funny. I wrote down in my notes. I'm like, huh. I feel like this aged poorly. I don't know why. 'Cause she
Put
was arguing.
on the mask.
Yeah, because she didn't want to wear a mask, and I'm like, why do I feel like this aged poorly?
That what makes me feel itchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting parallels to today,
Yeah.
or more last year. Um,
I do like their bickering when they're both. I'm just gonna call them cunts back and forth to each other, where they're just both being absolute real brats to one another. It was hilarious to me.
you're rude and sour. I'm not sour.
Oh, he's definitely sour.
That was a sour face. He just had a warhead. It was,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I wrote down for the whole like maid circulation thing. I'm like, I have to tab this because I want to look this device up if it ever existed.
They, they did. They had one for Pawn Stars that came in, and they literally called it a quack machine because it does nothing. Uh, so. But that was a lot of the medical technologies back then. That was,
Yeah,
you put a light bulb next to a sore muscle and it heals it, type
yeah.
deal.
I mean,
Um,
there's definitely to the whole. There's definitely something to the whole like if you are told this and you believe it hard enough, sometimes it happens because
yeah, placebo
there's
stuff.
yeah, there's definitely some placebo stuff. But yeah, quack machine.
Um, I liked the puppet show. Uh, it's less that it's present because it doesn't really contribute anything, but it looks good. Looks of the time. It reminds me of the puppets in Santa Claus.
Oh,
Because I don't know, they look very similar.
now those are magic.
Those are magic. Yes, they are sentient. What a different movie this would be if these puppets came to life.
That'd be a
Beauty and
dream
the Beast
sequence.
only crippled in bed, I guess.
Beauty and the Cripple. Yikes.
I'm going to hell. All right.
I'll join you. Uh,
uh,
mhm.
let's see.
Oh, great line by Mary, by the way, because we haven't really touched on it, but Colin's obsessed with just saying he's going to die all the time.
Oh
And
yeah,
she's like, if everyone thought that of me, I would not do it.
I'm
Why,
like
you
yeah,
wouldn't die because people are going to tell you you're going to die?
yeah. I'm like I can admire that in you, kid. Got the spunk, got the spite in you.
A
I
spike to
do.
the max.
Yeah, I like it. I also like that Martha notices, kind of going in that scene. I like that Martha notices her boot when she's hiding under the bed.
And slows down.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely dumb because she's has to be smarter than that. We crawl all the way underneath the bed, but it's still amusing to me.
Yeah. And we see more Medlock being mean to Martha. And she has to
Yeah,
get herbs. Last time you got the herbs, you only got the stems and hardly any leaves. And storms
yep.
off. Um,
One good shot, another good like transition is I definitely got the whole idea of Mary got summoned to the hounds with all the big dogs in the uncle's room that were growling at her.
those dogs. They were massive. And it was
They are
hilarious when they were fighting on the stairs.
yeah,
Uh, Pretty random. Menacing dogs, yeah. If I went to my uncle's house and I was 10, I think that's, yeah, they're 10. Um, there was just a big dog in there growling all the time. I wouldn't go in there.
yeah,
I mean, my grandma had a little was it Pomeranian, I think. I don't know. That dog was deaf and blind and would attack anything.
yeah.
Terrified me, and it was a small dog. Uh,
Is this the one? Is this also the same act where they fight over the stories as well, like the illogic of the god or whatever being like normal size, being able to swallow the universe or whatever?
Maybe. Go ahead if you want to talk about it.
Um,
Might as well cover it.
I have a note just saying that with him like I'm not sour. I wrote apparently I found his acting funny but not good.
Yeah, that's our bit. Not great, but funny. Uh,
Uh,
Butterflies, time lapse, Salvador, pants, dead, blah blah lumps.
oh, this is also funny. When she goes down to throw all the seeds everywhere after finding she can garden everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down, I'm like, what's the point of the signs that are planted, Mary? It's because there's signs planted everywhere, so I assume they're supposed to designate things. And then she goes just throwing seeds everywhere.
Yeah, we can have red ones, blue ones, lilies, and yeah, especially towards the end when the garden's actually full grown. It was pretty
Yeah.
clean looking. It didn't look very sloppy to me.
Yeah. Because
Um,
I'm not gonna believe that she picked up every single one of those seeds.
well, isn't it interesting? The first plant she finds that was alive in the garden was the Empress of India lily, which is an actual flower. Very
Um,
interesting.
I didn't. I didn't know that was real. It's been a while. Fuck me. Okay, yeah, that's cool. I like that.
It,
Good, good,
yeah,
good, good.
it was brought up twice, I think, in the movie, but I had to look it up because it sounded too stupid. But it was
Yeah, I
actually a name
assumed.
of a flower.
I legitimately assumed they named the plant, and I'm like, all right, that's fair. That's fine. But if it's actually like the name of the plant itself, that's very, very layered, and I approve even more.
They knew their flowers when making this. And I think that's pretty much all I got for the act, you guys.
Where did you say this one ends?
Ends at Colin wanting to go outside.
Well, we better talk about Dickon ripping off all the barricades to his windows and Colin throwing an absolute hissy fit.
Oh yeah, probably a good idea. Go ahead.
uh, I so I assumed that they had nailed the like actual windows shut, but they nailed fucking blinds on there, and I like the wooden blinds, and I don't know why.
In case he pulls the nails out of the windows.
Okay,
No, I don't know.
because the windows open just fine. So
I don't know. Um, I don't know. How else are they going to stay up there?
fuck if I know. uh,
Uh, not the problem I had with the scene.
outside the acting, we'll get.
Well, we had
Uh,
Sprinks caught this. Do you want to bring it up? The Mary bit.
I guess I don't know what you mean. You're talking about.
Oh,
I'm
oh,
looking
you
at my.
pointed out that she teleported.
Oh, how'd she go
oh,
outside so fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I was looking at my notes, and unfortunately, being that I saw this movie over a week ago, I can't necessarily go off of memory. Um, but yes, there's
it was very instantaneous.
yeah.
Having rewatched it just before the podcast.
One thing is that she was like up in a room and then she's outside incredibly fast.
Yeah, teleported onto the back of the horse,
Yeah.
riding away into the sunset with Dickon.
And before that, there's a part during the night. Well, one thing is I have written down. I don't remember the other two instances, but one transition that they've used in this movie 3 times at this point now is in the dead of night transitioning. When it's really dark outside to just do like a
Oh, when the
landscape
uncle's
kind
going
of thing.
away.
Yeah, they do it what I have written down is this is the third time it's happened in the movie. Um, so I think it's a nice actual use of a transition than just cuts. Um,
Mhm.
and then there's a part where Mary's looking at a window at night, and the shadowing from the window, I guess window beam, gives her a mustache. And to me, she looked like she had like a friendly mutton chop. She looked like John Price from the Modern Warfare games. It was very humorous.
That's funny.
So
I want a screenshot
so
of this. Sprinks.
yeah, it's when she was seeing the Lord leave the estate.
That's funny. Um,
Um,
see,
yeah,
which
Colin freaking out. The spores.
Oh yeah.
Ah!
and it is because the way I was raised that every time he said spores, my mind just immediately went to the Arbiter's quote, or I'm sorry, Shipmaster's quote of one single flood spore can destroy species. I know it's definitely very me, but I just found it funny that my mind went there every single time.
Yeah, mine did not. um, was he justified in his freak out?
Hell no. What?
No.
In his character?
Character as a whiny little bitch? Yeah, no, it's in character. Is he justified? No. It's not out of character. No, I thought the acting was from okay to bad, just some of the time. Uh,
No, no.
and you can hear his screams throughout the whole house.
Yeah, and outside, Mary had to run back.
Yeah,
She
and
ran
which
out there,
just
got on the horse, and ran back into the building.
took her sweet time apparently compared to like teleporting outside.
Yeah. Came back
uh,
and
uh,
checked for lumps, and then he was all better now.
yeah, after standing on his bed and yelling at him, which was amusing.
Yeah.
Uh,
You're spoiled and selfish. No, I'm not.
yeah,
I'm dying.
I have to point out right here, the fact that he screams for her, and I put in notes. By the way, the maids definitely know now that they see each other. Like, if Medlock doesn't, this is a fucking mistake. um,
And Medlock, not very kind to Martha.
no, smack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Medlock, not the kindest person, but we get to see a good side of her at the very end on her last shot.
yeah.
Whether or not that
Um,
recontextualizes your view of her, I don't know. We'll
I mean,
cover that.
she's yeah. We'll talk about it. Um,
Hopefully, you're still here when we do.
we'll fucking see. Da, 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 da. Happy birthday to my niece. That's this is recorded, so that'll be
And good.
funny
It's been
in like
dated.
yeah, it'd be funny in like 10 years when she's old enough to understand this.
Yeah, and watches this movie.
Yeah.
Uh,
uh, uh, yeah. So
yes.
he's throwing a tantrum. I assume it's out of jealousy and then also just general pain that he can't follow her.
Oh, I didn't get that at all.
I
I
got
thought he
I
was
got
just freaking out over the whole thinking he's about to die.
oh no, I got jealousy because she can go outside and he can't. So I'm happy you brought this up because I guess we took tantrum in different directions. So I mean, there is that aspect to it, but clearly no one else is affected by it. So I assumed it would probably be a mix of both. Then, like he's jealous that she can do this and he can't.
I mean, up to this point, he didn't really show any interest of going outside. He was actually against it. But then once he realized he's not sick, then he wants to go outside and experience
Once he realizes
everything.
he's not dying, he's like, "Oh, maybe." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I can experience things. Uh, Spriggs, did you see it as a jealousy thing or just a I'm going to die thing?
For
His his tantrum.
um neither really. I saw it as just like emotional distress
Caused by yeah.
caused by um difference. Like like being kind of how Martha treated Mary is how he's being treated now by Dickon and Mary. So I think it's kind of that same
You
connection
know
of
what?
like
That's a fair
how Mary
point.
was feeling.
Yeah, because Mary does like feel trapped and she starts beating on her walls like a cage. There is that parallel, isn't there?
Well, when Mary does that, it's when Martha thought she was going to look like a native, and Mary did not like that.
No, she
Started
did
freaking
not.
out and called Martha's mom a pig and stuff. Like, way to freak out.
Yeah, like I
Which I
said,
guess kind of affects her view on her servants if she didn't like the term native, calling her a native. Hmm, I don't know.
fair enough.
Interesting. Yeah, are we good to go now? All right, we got more Colin talk.
Uh, checks for lumps, yells at Medlock. I this is the scene where Colin was yelling at Medlock that I understood how on the nose Medlock's name is. Uh,
Med locks the door.
yeah. Well, I mean, she she locks him in the house because of a medical condition, and I found that very on the nose here.
Pure coincidence. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
uh, yeah,
Well, I
couldn't
guess you're
consider
dying,
that.
kid. So spores got in. Sorry. Rip Colin.
Well, Spriggs, you didn't want him to die at the end of this, right?
No,
What was your whole headspace on that?
of why I didn't want him to die.
Yeah, you seemed like you were passionate about him not dying at the end when we watched it together.
Yes. I I apologize to the audience. I can't answer that in this podcast. I can answer it in the
Why?
future.
Uh-oh.
Do you
That's
have to
that
compare it
that's
to something?
that yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Stay tuned for potential recap coverage, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, all right. That's it. He
Yeah,
tells his people that he wants to go outside now, and they
yeah.
have to
So
leave him
when
alone.
he, yeah, so when he says he's like, this is where he thinks he's not sick, and then I'm like, okay, so this is all just a big cover for depression, then, right? So, because it was a very like, it's very so like he, I guess, realized he's not gonna die from exposure, so I'm fine with it. I just thought it was funny the jump, I guess.
Yeah, he's got 10 years of outdoors to experience in one day.
Yeah, and then Mary tells him how to be a brat to all his servants.
Yeah, I have
I have
spoken
spoken
all
all
the
the
time,
time.
just like in India.
I thought it was funny. All
Um,
right,
and
and then Medlock hits Martha again.
well, I was going to lay out the next act of the kids are outside and the to the end of the chant. So I guess the ethereal part.
La Magique.
Yeah. Someone say something.
Sure. Medlock hit Martha again. I'm like, you're really making me not like her. And I love the actress, but you're making me not like the character here.
Maggie Smith is the bad guy?
Yeah. And she looks the same as in Deathly Hallows Part,
Yeah,
just
it's like
20 years later.
yeah, I was calling her McGonagall until I actually like realized what her name was. On my notes.
Oh,
Uh,
Sprinks, you got something?
Yeah, I just think it's still. I mean, we already kind of covered it, but I wrote in my notes at this point it's a little unbelievable that the uncle and the servants never thought to see if Colin could walk after all the um, like electroshock with the quack machine or anything to actually test it.
yeah, none of them bothered trying. It's a
Yeah,
little annoying.
Oh,
I don't know if they just
interesting.
expected him to just get out of bed himself without
Well, I don't think the machine is to cure him to walk. I think
is to
it's to
keep
keep
him.
his legs from atrophy and
Oh, well.
just dying. Because she said it's for circulating the blood. Um, so I don't think they're trying to cure him from walking. They're just trying to keep his legs from rotting away.
Mhm.
That's my assumption on the quack machine.
Yeah, that was mine as well.
Um, the weird thing is, I don't know why he would never move his legs in the first place in bed or wiggle his toes or how could you move your legs without ever moving your leg? Realizing that they can move. That
Yep.
that part's a bit weird. Can't explain that.
Let's see. Uh, I I thought it was. This is where we do a lot of pan throughs of how beautiful the garden is, right? Now that all three of them are there.
Yes.
I wrote down in my notes that the garden is very beautiful. It can certainly imply something magical about it, but but at this point, I'm pretty sure that's just wishful thinking. Those are my exact notes because I wasn't sure about whether like I'm still not the only
Wishful
reason
thinking. So you
yeah
want it to be magic?
I would
Oh,
prefer if it was, but it's not. I don't. Well, like I said, it falls under softcore magic system because of the whole spell to dream thing that happens. Uh, which is why I'm willing to at least apply the softcore magic system as a definition. But supernatural, like I said, for me, I should probably also specify supernatural for me falls under softcore magic system.
So, Ryder, you've told me in the past you've experienced ghost stuff, hauntings and whatnot. So, are real life ghosts considered magic to you?
Yeah,
Oh,
I would consider them softcore magic system because I don't fucking understand them. I do the ghosts do not make sense to my scientific mind, and I don't apply rules to them. then unless it's very, very obvious cliche bullshit. So
Okay. Well, guess that covers that.
yeah, yeah, falls under the same purview for me, man.
Nice
Sprinks, you were saying something?
parallel I'd like to make is at this point when they're exiting the mansion to go to the garden. Beforehand, when Mary first went out, it's pretty much the same shot for shot of when Mary went out to the garden. The angle of the mansion, it was all kind of gloomy, and she was by herself and very isolated. Nothing else was around until she met up with the groundskeeper and the Robin. But in this shot, when it's
Yeah, sure,
Colin,
not
Dick, and
pick on, but
Earl,
sure.
it's more bright. There's animals out in the field. I think there's like a deer, um, and it's just a lot more lively.
They were not creative with the names of these animals. We find the names of two, well, I guess three. They named the Robin Robin, which is, of course.
Yeah.
The goose, his name is Honker, and the goat's name is Billy. So very, very creative.
Great
Yep.
names.
Very short. Yes.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, Billy the Billy Goat, and Honker the Goose.
Is this is where the gardener comes in, right? Like Gardner comes in also when they're all out there together for the first time.
Yes. What's it say? You're the little cripple.
Yeah. You're the little cripple. Hilarious.
Yeah, and then they form a he and Cullen connect, and so the gardener's invited in.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
even though he
the old
goes in
man,
here by himself.
yeah, because the old man was in charge of tending to it with his mom, I think, right?
Yes.
I would believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, the aunt told him to keep the place up. Do you think there he was climbing to keep up the shrubs, or he was climbing to hop over?
No,
No, he
I
was
absolutely
attending.
think yeah, he was tending to the shrubs outside. He was just happened to be in a spot where he could see them.
Yeah,
So
because
do
he
you
does say
think?
he comes in here. So.
Do you think he was using the ladder to climb into the garden?
He says he goes in here even though he's not supposed to. So he unless he had a key, um, I would say yes.
He seems too old to take that tactic of climbing a ladder, probably sitting on top of the hedge to move the ladder to the other side so he can get
Yeah, if
out.
you're
That
dedicated.
seems too much.
I mean,
It's
if that's the
time.
only joy in his life, he's a groundskeep. Did you see how happy he was about this garden? Um, no, I don't think it's possible, but we have nothing to back it. So he could have a key. He could hop the barrier.
See, that would have been a
Who
cool
knows?
scene if we saw just the groundskeeper and like how he felt about the garden.
I don't. I don't know.
Problem is we can't do that because we're seeing most of this through Mary's POV.
Yeah.
That's true, but there are scenes without Mary.
It would be weird if we just cut to the groundskeeper and the
That's what I'm thinking.
in
That's
the
what I'm saying. We
garden.
could probably do something Mary adjacent. Like we could have a prolonged scene of Dickon in there, and then Mary comes in. We don't really have that for as an option for the groundskeeper, because it's a very Mary POV centric story, and there are scenes without her, yes, but it'd be a very
It,
very odd thing for the just to be the random gardener because he's not in this enough.
I just think it would be kind of weird because it's Mary's secret garden. I think it would be weird if they detracted and focused on others. But I don't know. You guys think a little differently on
I think it
it.
would have strengthened the support characters that they had more.
Like I said, the strongest candidate would be Dickon because he knows about it, and we could just have a prolonged scene with him in there, and then Mary comes in to join him.
What would
As in,
him being in there bolster though? What would that contribute? We
well,
know he's the nature boy.
we
We
know
know
he's the
he
nature
knows
boy.
about it.
We know he knows about it, and we could probably have him telling a story to the Robin because we know he talks to them. It's a
Yeah.
very easy way to get character traits out of people.
Give him a little Snow White
But we already
moment
know
before
that
Prince
stuff.
Charming comes in.
Yeah, well, we don't know any. As you say, his character is flat. This is an opportunity to do both, where we can improve his character by him telling a story to a bird, either via a story about himself or something he learned when he was a kid or something like that.
I mean, if he's talking
Mm.
to animals, he could be
It's
like
it's
walking
it's it's how
down
we,
and
it's how we would do it without detracting it from being Mary's garden. Is the whole thing. Like I said, that's why I say Dickon is probably the strongest character to do a scene without Mary in the garden for, because he's already knows about it, and we can just introduce Mary at the end of the scene, and they can have where you'd have half a scene to himself, and the other half would be with Mary, and we can continue on with something else that happened.
Uh, do you guys think we should have had Martha go in there at some point at the end or something?
yeah.
Um,
Because Martha pretty much just lives working at the manor,
I think it would have been.
and she knows of the
Uh,
garden through Mary and stuff.
she knows the guy through Mary and her brother,
Yeah,
so
I think it would have been a nice scene of her saying how like overgrown it is and that it needs to be kept up, and then the kids tell her like, no, 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 keep it as is because it's healing and how it changes itself because it's quote unquote magic. I think that would have been
I
nice
don't.
add in.
I would have been fine if Martha was introduced to it. Yeah, I don't know how I would do that into the story, but I, on the surface, I like that in concept.
I think if she
I
like
ha
followed one of them,
Yeah, I mean, like the most obvious tether would be her brother. Maybe her brother takes her there.
yeah. I don't know, because Medlock fires her, kind of. She claims to. Then Colin's like, "No firing. Don't be mean to
Yeah,
her." Um, so I don't know. There's something there. Whether or not it would be shoehorned and unnecessary, I guess I'd have to come to execution.
yeah, yes.
Uh,
Obviously, same applies with our on with our scenario that doesn't happen of having scene of someone in there without Mary
yeah,
or time in there necessarily. Um,
we get to see parallels of the sheep walking and
yeah, the baby
Colin
lamb.
walking.
Yeah, that
yeah,
was on the nose. I still liked it.
I
um,
wonder how old that that lamb was, because it was struggling to walk, so really it did have to be a couple days old.
yeah,
Which means they really had to plan this.
yeah. We also because he stands up with the gardener, and then we have like three different scenes, right, of him learning to walk better and better.
Yes.
I think
Not
so.
counting the one where he was walking through the mansion at night to practice for his dad to surprise him.
Yeah.
Was there a
Uh,
comment? Was there also a line saying "Are you a ghost again?" Because I thought there was a parallel
there
for that.
was.
I
Yeah.
don't remember.
When Colin went into Mary's
Oh,
room,
when the
uh, yeah, she asked if he was a ghost. What do you guys think about him sneaking through the house and one finding her room and two not be seen by staff?
Um,
well, the only thing that helps him is that it's the night and it's his house, so I would hope he knows
He's
how to
only
get
been in
around
his
it.
bedroom.
Is he been
I
stuck in his bedroom?
He's
Then that
Yeah, he
makes it
said he's been
worse.
bedridden for his
I
whole life.
think he eventually found her room.
He's been picked up and moved to the bath,
Yeah,
but
I think he did. I think it was a lot longer for him to find her room than it initially showed.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. And he at least has had a tour of the house because he's been on the wheelchair now. The fresh air agrees with me, so I can assume he's been throughout the house at least at this point. Whether he knows it's her room, I don't.
um, oh yeah, when Colin enters the garden for the first time, he's like, "This is exactly what I imagined." I'm like, "Do you even know what flowers look like?"
I'm assuming he's got books.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
got
it's just like,
puzzles.
I wonder
He's
what he
probably got books.
pictured to match so accurately. Um, yeah, so they try to devise a plan on getting the uncle back, so Colin can surprise him with his walking abilities. And Mary breaks into his office to steal photos. Essentially, she went in for an address and took photos. The photos.
Mm.
Um, I don't
Hounds
know
are still
about this
there.
scene. Huh? Yeah, the
Hounds are
dogs
still
are
there.
there. Yeah, that I think that was the worst transition in this was the growling dog. Uh,
Yes, I
that
remember
was
that
not
one.
good. Um, I don't know. Would you guys think the photo bit should be in here, or it's just unnecessary filler?
Um, I'm happy with a character snooping around to look for addresses, and she ends up taking the photos. It adds to just the fact that she's trying to help, but it doesn't necessarily need to be here.
Okay,
So I guess I'm indifferent.
strings.
Um, yeah, I, either or.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes,
On
great. It's
yes, great insight. All right, we'll go with the swing scene. They try to recreate the picture, I guess, of the uncle and aunt. At least that's what I took away from it. I don't know. You think that was their intention, or just like, why not just have the two of them on a swing, take pictures?
I thought it was just the two of them on the swing. I didn't think it was
Because
a recreation.
they essentially do. I'm just curious if they were going and intending that or not. Okay, writer, what do you think about that?
sorry, I had someone come in my room. What was it?
So, uh, when they were on the swings, do you think they're recreating the photo, or just happened to be a parallel?
I think Colin was intentionally trying to recreate the photo, mostly because they had the photos at that point. So like that was the excuse.
Mhm. And so it's weird because Dickens said that the aunt died on the swing, and Colin said his mom died when he was born, implying died giving birth. At least that's was my takeaway. What do you think is the correct death?
She could have died giving birth on the swing.
Ah,
Ooh,
I like that theory.
you know what? We'll stick with that. Why not? Because she does seem to be haunting that garden.
Yeah. So I mean, I've heard of stranger births. So I mean, my okay, I'm gonna out a family member here. One of my aunts, they she gave birth in a river. So like baby comes out of her and it floats to the top because it's a kid, so it floats. And so it's a cold water birth, and they can breathe because the umbilical cord is still attached. And it's actually a very comfortable way to give birth if you can find a clean river to do it in.
The more you know.
Yeah. Da 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 da. Uh,
Uh,
so I've heard of stranger births. I could actually believe that if this garden was as precious to her as all the history about this person implies, she might have wanted to give birth in this area. They're not necessarily on the swing, but in the area of it. I could buy that.
all right. I will take that as official canon now. There you go. Let's see what else is worth covering in this act.
It's fairly lucky that all Colin's legs are red and swollen after having them atrophy for so fucking long.
It's crazy that I can use them after 10 years of being bedridden. um, but yeah, at least they put in the effort to show something would happen to his legs.
Yeah, I respect the throwaway line. Yes, it doesn't break anything. It's some patchwork that I like.
And yeah, my luck's freaking out. She's worried
Yes.
about him clotting.
Okay, so
And
I have to ask: did Menlock know that the kids were all having fun at this point together constantly?
No.
Because there's a scene where Colin, after leaving Mary's bedroom, he walks off, and then you could see Medlock coming up the stairs and looks directly at her. Which means
well,
obviously that's her being suspicious of Mary because Mary's out of her room. But I actually think Medlock does know about them at this point.
yeah, when he ordered them to let him go outside in his chair,
Yeah,
he was with the two kids. So she definitely knows they were hanging out. She definitely doesn't know that he's running about though.
No, that part that she doesn't know, but I assume she knows they're having fun at this
Yeah,
point.
so she definitely knows that. She fears that he's clotting and that they've turned over the chair. So she might think that, well, turning over a chair wouldn't explain the legs, but maybe clotting in her eyes. Uh, um, so yeah, she knows they're messing around. She doesn't like that, which is why she locks up Mary after this.
Yeah, but thankfully she has a secret passage, so she literally just walks from the door to the secret passage. I'm like,
It
wow, you couldn't wait like 5 minutes just to get yourself some time?
it was the shortest grounding in history. Uh,
Pretty much, yeah.
uh, immediately leaves. Unfortunately, I have a problem where when her and Colin leave, Colin's running around with a cane. Like, you're
Yes,
running already? I don't think that
yes.
much time has passed.
That's a problem. Also, because Medlock is so attentive, she would notice that Colin's gone again for long hours during the day. And yes, she has lots of work to do, but this is her one concern. So it's also a problem that Medlock doesn't notice the fact that she's gone.
The only counter I can say is that he's ordered her to be distant now because she does listen to his orders.
That's
Um,
true.
she
I
only
don't.
disobeyed at the very end, obviously, um, by locking her up. He obviously didn't want that. So I'm fine with him telling her to not check up on him anymore, only if
Mhm.
he calls for her. But that is me assuming.
Yeah. Like I said, I could buy that too. Not really aligned to support it though.
Yeah.
So it's an assumption that I could buy though.
All right. Well, the last part for this is the chant. Crazy chant.
Ooga booga. Please bring my dad back to me.
I wrote it down. Oh, great magic, please come to me. Send me my father here. Set his spirit free. What a weird chant. Set his spirit free. What does that mean?
I I found it weird that they all knew it.
I'm gonna assume
And
they
then
practiced beforehand, like they talked about it, because we did cut to them like at night.
I
Yeah,
guess so, but they
I
didn't all start at once. It was just Mary going, and then they joined in. It's like they had to. It was like almost like flash mob style, kind of, where it's like you had to know what one person was doing to jump in.
it's like
Mhm.
practical magic during
Yeah,
the broom circle. Are we
yeah,
supposed to be singing as well?
yeah. It's one of those things where people don't rehearse the spells, where clearly they would have. At least for practical magic, here is more ambiguous because they're children.
Uh, yeah, I'm not too worried. It's not too much to remember. It's like one
They
sentence.
could have, honestly, they could have just come up with it right then, and I think that would have been fine.
Uh, that's I'm willing to accept that as well. But yeah, weird chant. Is that supposed to be some like Indian chant or something? I'm trying to figure out why they went this route.
It's
uh,
witchcraft.
there's got to be some connection to something because it seems kind of random to me.
Soft core magic system.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to think why they'd come up with this idea to get him. Because
Salem witch trials.
it'd be cool if she's like, I heard this type of summoning thing in India. I don't know. I don't know much about Indian stuff, but it'd be cool if they could connect this ritual to her heritage in India.
I'm trying to remember. I think there was a line, like just a very, very minuscule throwaway line about it. I don't remember the exact words of it though,
Hmm.
because it
Well,
it def-
that'd be
it
good
felt
if
out
they
of.
did.
Yeah, I think they might have, but I don't remember it, so I'm not gonna die on that hill.
Hmm.
Uh, so, but I guess with that being said, I have to operate on the fact that it wasn't. So I Yeah, I it's very the idea does come out of nowhere in that instance then, which is odd, but also the children, they have active imaginations. Maybe they just thought this would work.
Yeah, that's all I can really chop it up to. Um, and then the last part is the actual summoning him, I guess, with the ant calling for him.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, I kind of like the echo effects that they use on their voices. I guess it could be perceived as cheesy, but I like it.
yeah.
I'm in the garden. I'm in the garden with Colin.
Yeah.
It's spooky.
It's definitely spookified. Um, I remember writing like, all right, spell touches uncle, or dream. I don't fucking know. It's one of the two. I'm willing to believe it's softcore magic at this point.
Mhm. I
Uncle,
don't know what he was doing on the like open fields on the little cliff face or whatever. um, in that
he's
because they
overlooking his estate, obviously.
was he? I don't
Well,
remember the
I
state.
mean, that's what it reminded me of. It reminds me of the, the opening shot of the estate where you have that field cliff face on the estate.
Okay,
So I assume that's where that it formulated in his mind. That's where it came from. But
okay, because she was in the garden, which makes sense. Uh, but he was there, which was instead of the actual hotel he was at,
Mhm.
which I think it was in France. It the sounded like he said something in French to the serving guy. Uh,
Yes, I got that
so
as
he
well.
he got home really quickly. If that was France,
Uh,
um,
from France to UK, at
Oh,
least a couple weeks
teleportation
of
runs in the
travel.
family.
yeah, because the chain was at night, and then he arrives presumably the next day. We don't get a definitive timeline, but um, it's perceived to be next day at least. So
What I guess this kind of brings up a question, being that Mary has, secret doors and ways to get around the house. Do you think Medlock knows about any of these?
that's kind of what I brought up with the ants room thing. Um, I I don't know the extent of that secret door. I don't
Okay,
know if it's just a secret hallway that kind of like a crawl space type deal, and it just allows her to access some other part of the building, and then she enters Colin's room or the ant's room. We don't get to see too much of it, but I would think she would, but obviously for the story's sake, she doesn't.
okay. Because the way to get to Mary's room is kind of already by it's not really secret, but a door, the wooden door at the top of the steps that just blends in with the wall.
Mhm.
So it's not secret because everyone knows about that door, but it's not. It would it would give reason to believe it's not the only type of door in the whole mansion like that. So
Yeah, yeah, probably not. These type of buildings tend to be symmetrical, so I'd imagine there's something similar on the other end of the house.
I'm only bringing it up because when the uncle got back and went to go check on Mary with Medlock, Mary was nowhere to be found, and Medlock was all confused um, because the door was behind the drape. But that also kind of shows that the uncle didn't know that there's a door behind the drape as well, because when he just pointed out to Medlock.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that's true. Secret door is a little weird.
Yep.
Like, that is indeed a problem. Anything else this act?
Seeing as this is the last act,
Well, I'm about blah, blah. This ended at the chant. Was there anything
Oh,
before
we
that?
kept on.
oh,
Oops. No, I didn't know
I
how much the kids did believe that this would work, or if it was just for fun.
I think it was fun because Colin was surprised. He's like, "It worked!" Like, um, they were all pretty surprised he was there. So I doubt they thought it was actually going to work.
yeah.
I mean, even as
Um,
a kid, I don't think I'd be stupid to believe some random chant to get my dad or someone to come over. I don't. I wouldn't believe that it would actually get them there.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. You guys could read it differently. Did you think that?
I The only one I could believe who actually had maybe some thought that it could would be Dickon, because of like speaking to animals, and he knows more about the grounds kind of more openly than Mary or Colin.
So if he's speaking to those animals literally, yeah.
I mean, probably. I mean, as you said, he just got
He
on the
talked to
back of
Robin.
a horse and just rode away.
Well, that's not too much of a problem. Um, okay. Well, we are final act, so Uncle waking up from the dream or whatever to the end. Expect you want to go first?
Sure. What to tackle here? Um, Man, Medlock had a meltdown on the stairs when she got fired.
I resign.
Like life is over.
Oh yeah, and Sweet Martha goes to comfort her, which is
Yeah,
something, I guess.
well, it makes sense for Martha's character to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
I
Medlock
mean,
slaps her away, like when she touched her shoulder, and then she kind of leans in a little bit and says, "Martha." And so I had a hard time reading Medlock here on the stairs. She seemed comforted by Martha, but also she never
she was
showed
just
respect
sad.
towards Martha this whole time.
Yeah, because well, Martha's been a comforting and caring person to everyone, so I think she just feels the guilt of everything she did to Martha because Martha's the only one that's there for her. So I felt that's how I interpreted it.
Okay, I mean that would be good for her character if that is the case. She's seen how bad she's been.
I mean, the only reason I can interpret it because it helps explain the good aspects that we see of her later. I don't know if it was necessarily an arc; it was a change, but I kind of like the idea that no one is there for her except the one person that she is always rude to, which is Martha.
And we get, at least I felt that she truly did care about Colin this whole time, even
Oh yeah, oh
though
I
she's been
absolutely
mean to
get that.
everybody.
I absolutely get that she cares about Colin for sure. Which only adds to why she smiles when she sees him walking. Um,
Um, do you think she's actually out of that place now? Do you think she went through with the resignation?
Ambiguous. Didn't care to think about it because I have no idea.
Oh, I'm
I
asking you to think now. Do
I
you think
mean,
they would have wrote her to actually resign after
No.
seeing him walk?
I'm gonna say no. I think her and the uncle would have had more, a better conversation with Uncle actually being way more uplifting. Now, I think it was just in the moment. It was high concern.
she didn't get fired. She resigned, which helps, I suppose, and the fact that she might not actually have left. But
Yeah, she's spouting off all the excuses, and he's like, "Silence! She's just a child." I resign. Uh, yeah, I think she probably would stick around. Um, her duties would definitely be a lot simpler now. He, he can walk.
uh, also, Mary's crying. She's crying for. So we have the little thread from the very beginning, I
Oh
suppose.
boy, she learned.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just wanna get this last note out because I do have to go. I thought it was funny that Dickon just teleports around a fucking hedge after she sprints off. Uh, when Colin and her dad are I think Colin and his dad are just exploring the garden together and having like reconnecting, I suppose. She
mhm.
runs off because she just feels unwanted and alone. Dickon just pretty much teleports behind the hedge, and I wrote it down. I'm like, wow, you teleported like Michael Myers. That's funny. That's what I got. He just walks around the bend like he's from a fucking horror movie, even though that's not the tone of the scene at all.
uh, yeah, I didn't catch that teleport. Okay, well, if you're leaving us, what's your ratings?
All right. My my subjective is 2. Didn't really enjoy the movie. I don't really plan to watch it again. Uh, Objective, I'm still oscillating between a 5.5 and a 6. Being honest, I think the movie has a lot of technical aspects that work for it, and obviously it has a lot of shortcomings. So it is fallen smack dab in the middle because of that.
So
So
5.5.
yeah, roughly there. It's about there. All right, gentlemen, y'all have fun. Enjoy the podcast, and uh, to all my fellow audience members, I'll see you next time. I've been a geeky writer. So
Glad
long.
you managed to stick around for most of it.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Toodaloo,
Good
writer.
luck with good luck with the anchor readings, Springs.
Yeah. Oh boy.
All right. Now we're down to 2. This is a first.
Well, yeah. I mean, just us for now. I mean, we're almost done.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess what else do you want to cover here? The final
There's I again going off of my notes. I believe it comes to when the uncle sees that Colin can walk, and it's like uplifting music and it's all happy. I don't think it was fitting.
You
I
don't think
think
it
it
was
was
fitting?
too fast. I think a more gradual or maybe a little confusion or something. It just seemed way too happy to me.
Him seeing Colin walk?
Seeing no, not just Colin walking and being happy about it, but like his son's out and about, healed, not angry at Mary or Dickon, and they're all walking back to the mansion, and everyone in the all the servants are happy about it and everything. It was to me it was too much.
Too big of a happy ending?
Yeah, I don't think it was fitting.
Hmm. I suppose. I mean,
With how the
for I guess the
servants,
staff, they've been seeing him bedridden for 10 years. Um, so I would understand why they're pretty happy about seeing him walk.
I could see it happy as like a miracle, like oh man, he's walking. But I also
Yeah.
see it more on the side because Medlock was in charge of. He's out. He's about. It's they all knew this because they took him outside, took Colin outside. Um, but I think it would be more shock and awe than like happy tears kind of thing. I mean, even Medlock is like real happy about it.
Um, I guess I could see shock and awe as an alternative as well.
It just
I don't
seems
think it stands out enough to where it's distracting that they're happy. I think it's justifiable, but I can also agree like shocked faces would also be appropriate.
it might
Uh,
it might also stand out just a little to me of being more sudden because the movie has been very gradual of changing emotions of like Mary and Colin, um, throughout the film of being brats to friends and whatnot. So I think the sudden happiness to all this gradual change in characters is just not out of the blue, but just um, a lot faster than the tones throughout the film.
yeah, so you think there was kind of a pacing issue
Yeah.
at the end? Okay. Uh, fair.
Also, do you think Colin? Well, this is gonna be a real silly question. Do you think Colin's ever touched his dad's face?
No, I don't think Colin's seen his dad,
Oh,
which is something I was going to bring up, which is how would he recognize him? 'Cause he, at least up to here, I believed he never saw his dad.
are there photos or portraits of his dad in the house? Because I
The
guess the
only one,
hair would give it away, like
the
his
only
facial
ones we
hair.
see is of the photos they stole, which I guess would explain it. Um, there's no pictures of him in Colin's room. The only picture in there is of the painting of his mom.
Because that's all I
So
can think
I
of then.
guess the photos they stole is my only explanation, which I guess works.
But that means he has to look exactly how he did in the photos to now.
Well,
But I also don't remember
you can
Colin
still
running
look
his
like.
fingers through his hair.
No, well,
It was like his cheeks.
he didn't feel his face and say "Dad." He felt his face, then took off his blindfold and said "Dad." If he felt his face and like "Dad," I would agree I'd have an issue
Oh, okay.
because there's no way he could tell.
He just
Since he
went,
took off his blindfold and
it's
then
an
said "Dad," I'm
adult.
like, okay,
Ugh,
yeah, that was pretty much it. He's like, "This isn't Mary or
Dickon.
Dickon." um, so yeah, If you said dad, I'd have a problem, but as it is, I think it's okay.
Okay.
I don't know what game they were playing.
I thought it was
It was
Marco
kind of
Polo,
like, yeah, it was like Marco Polo without them actually saying anything to give away their
which
location.
seems way harder and
It's
rude.
hard mode. You can walk into a thistle, some thorns, a tree.
Yeah, yeah,
He just learned to
blindfolded.
walk. Yeah, he just learned to walk.
Might be a little cruel.
It quite is, especially since they kept running up to him and poking him and then running away and stuff.
What a fun game.
Yeah, I never played that.
No.
An interesting one. Definitely some potential injuries.
Um,
Um,
I have written down, I think it was the last quote in the movie that it said like the spell is broken. My uncle learned to laugh and I learned to cry, and they never added in and Colin learned to walk, which I think was a more important thing in the film than the
yeah,
uncle
the
laughing or
uncle
her
learned to
crying.
love.
Oh, learn to love.
Yeah,
Oh.
it was learn to love, and she learned to cry. Um, which is true. Colin definitely had more of a presence in this story than the dad did. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like Falcon Winter Soldier, where at the ending the title only changed for Falcon type scenario, kind of forgetting other
Oh,
characters
okay,
had
okay.
changed.
I get what you're saying. Okay, I'm like, I don't remember a title popping up at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
The
it
Secret
switched to
Garden. The family's Secret Garden.
yes, that's it. Yeah, I guess they could have brought up Collins walking. So yeah, fair point. The pan out of like the horse and the scenery and the music,
Oh, when they're
I
all
love
walking
it.
back to the mansion?
No, the actual ending where it's just the
Oh,
white
okay.
horse on the field.
Yeah.
Um, beautiful. I really like that song. Um,
Oh,
I went back and listened to it.
looking at
Yesterday.
the image, I don't have this in my notes, but looking at the image, for anyone watching along on YouTube, Mary's now in a white dress instead of
Yes.
her darker blacks. So now she's a
Uh,
lighter, happier character.
lighter and bouncy, I think is what he said.
Oh yeah, bouncy. Right, he did say
Yeah,
that.
bounce. Yeah, bouncy. Does that look like bouncy clothes?
From what
Or
I'm
bouncy?
looking at right now, I don't know how to interpret bouncy clothing. So
Uh,
maybe.
does it look like sad fabrics that hang and are dreary?
I mean, it looks like a skirt. I mean, it's hanging. I wouldn't call it
Hmm.
dreary.
Okay, then I guess they did their job.
I don't know. I'm Crimson. I'm not a fashion designer. I
Get on it. You caught all the stuff in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You
well,
should.
that was way more apparent. They kept changing outfits all the time. This one married like 70% of the movies in black, and Colin's in a bed.
Yeah, for 10 years. For let's see, let's talk a little bit about sad Mary. She does cry. She runs away.
Yeah.
Uh, once she sees Colin and the uncle, she says, "Shoot, what she said? Wrote it down somewhere. Nobody wants me." I don't know why she says that. I don't know how
That's absurd.
Col Colin and her and his dad reconnecting equals nobody wants me.
Well, maybe it
um,
wasn't so much of her thinking nobody wants me in the terms of people right now, but I think it's more her seeing how Colin's dad interacted with him and her remembering how her parents interacted with her. And maybe that's what she means. No one wants me because her parents didn't. And the uncle hasn't really shown much want for Mary or Medlock or you know any like parental figures. Maybe that's what she means more of.
um, that would make sense. If that's the case, what they were going for, I think she overreacted because that seems more like an internal thing, not a nobody wants me
Well, she did.
vocally and running
Yeah,
away.
she did go off by her own.
Yeah, and then Dickon followed her. Um, so apparently, this part where she's crying was filmed in the winter, and it's supposed to be the spring. So they were all shivering on set, the kids.
Oh wow.
So it was hard for her to do the fake crying stuff.
She was in pain. Just freezing.
Inconvenient for sure. Her acting for fake crying, not the best, not the worst.
I mean, she's a young kid. Yeah.
Yeah, but do you think the payoff of her finally being able to cry is good enough?
I don't think it's a strong enough point or plot to even really matter in the movie. It's more of just like a nod to what she said at the very beginning. It wasn't something that was like, I think it was brought up once, but it wasn't like constantly brought up like I can't cry, I have no emotion kind of thing. I think the only payoff was she's becoming more of her own being without influence of anyone else around her. Without like the servants or her parents or um how people see her or treat her as, entitled or a princess or whatnot. I think it's more of like what she wants to do and how she is giving her the freedom of own thought and emotion to she breaks down and cries.
Okay. Interesting. You kind of saw the opposite to me, where you're seeing it more as her independence is building up the emotion. I see it more as she actually has people she cares about now. It's kind of the opposite because she didn't care about her parents. We kind of see she didn't care too much about her servants. Um, so I think her actually having a connection with
Well,
people and potentially losing them, I guess, in her eyes, with the uncle being more prevalent with his son now,
I
kind
agree
of
with
getting
you
to her.
too. I didn't mean it like actually caring about the servants and her parents. I meant more of like that is how she's been raised to be, and now she doesn't have to be raised by someone else or in someone else's image of how she needs to be portrayed, and she can just choose for herself. That's what I mean.
Yeah, definitely elements of both, I would say.
Yeah, I'm sure if someone came up to her now and said like, "Can you put your clothes on?" She'd laugh, be like, "Of course I can put my clothes on."
What, do you think I'm 10 years old? Of course. Um, yes, when we get to have the talk with the uncle shortly after this, because, well, we get Dick in, but he doesn't really say much of anything. What do you think of that whole interaction with the uncle?
I think being that the uncle has now his spell is broken, now he actually gives more care to Mary and actually talks to her rather than Medlock saying your uncle doesn't want to see you today or whatnot. He actually puts a little more effort into it because, I mean, if the uncle I believe is smart enough, he can see that Mary has done so much more for Colin, his son, than any of the servants right now. So she deserves more, respect of what she has done. But I don't know if his
Yeah.
head was actually even that thinking space of this is Mary's doing of Colin walking and having fun and whatnot.
Oh, he definitely does. He almost explicitly states it. So she's like, um, "I'm not wanted." He's like, "What's not wanted?" I guess he didn't hear her correctly. He's like, "If the garden wasn't wanted." He's like, "That's right. I didn't want the garden." And she said, "You never wanted to see Colin." And he's like, "You're right, but you made us together now. Blah blah blah. You've made us a happy family again." So he definitely acknowledged it in her, and I guess they were kind of paralleling her growth to the garden and how the garden was not wanted like she was not wanted as well. Uh, it would be interesting to see the family dynamic now that the uncle's in the picture, because this household would be very different to what we've seen for this whole hour and a half
Yeah.
film. Maybe they covered that in the sequel. I really don't remember anything in the sequel. Uh, but I like this interaction. It's pretty good.
Now, sorry, is the sequel you're talking about directly off of this 1993 version, or just off of the story of Secret Garden as a whole?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it's a sequel to this. It's called Return to the Secret Garden. But they recast everybody. So
Oh, okay.
I'd have to watch it again or read a synopsis to tell you for sure, but I don't remember enough to say.
Okay. Well, I'm sure someone in the comments of, you know, is going to let us know of how much fools we are for not doing our research.
Yes. I did so much research, but I don't want to spoil myself. Do you think this ending is a good ending for this film?
Oh boy. For this film, sure. I'll say yeah, it's fine. Because to me the movie wasn't very I guess entertaining is the word to use. So this ending of actually having an ending, not a very strong ending, but still an ending, I think is fine.
Yeah. I guess for me, I think it does its job. I think it ties up the little character interactions and stuff well enough. I think everyone's at a good spot where their characters have grown, except Dick, and he kind of just existed. He didn't really have any
Yeah, he was the same.
character development. Uh, Martha, I guess, it's the same way, but she's not that much of a character. She's only got a couple minutes of screen time.
I mean, for being siblings, they didn't even have much interactions, the two of them.
Did they have any? I'm trying to think if they had any.
Maybe they
It was
didn't.
just
I
I don't
don't
think
like
they
that.
did. Yeah, I think it
For
was just Martha bringing up she had a brother. I think that was it.
Huh. Unless writer has really twisted my mind here and was talking about a completely different character that wasn't even in the movie, and that they're actually not related.
They're related.
Never mind then.
Uh,
Yeah, I think it would have been cooler if there was actually more sibling interaction then.
uh, yeah, I can agree with that. I don't know what that would really look like in this because it'd be
Well,
kind of side stuff.
yeah, Dickon doesn't seem like a
And Dickon doesn't
troublemaker.
enter. He doesn't enter the house.
Yeah,
He's the outdoor guy.
I don't
I
know.
don't know if he's even allowed in the manor or not.
Yeah, I could see
Um,
something like Martha just giving him like some food, like in a back door or something. Just like
yeah,
saying, like,
could see
"Oh,
that.
what are your plans today?" And then Robin comes down. It's like, "Oh, this is my friend Robin," and "Oh, you're one with animals," and then that's it. Or
Yeah,
maybe like then Mary comes out, and then Mary and Dickon go off to the garden, and Martha just watches them leave, and then closes the door, goes back to work.
yeah, we see Martha do that with just Mary, but that would be good to see both of that them do that.
Anything else? Or is that
Perusing, I
the
think.
end?
Yeah, I think that was it.
All right.
Unless you got any overarching
Oh
themes or
boy.
anything, character developments
To
that you want to bring up.
themes. No, I don't think so. I said my notes weren't necessarily the longest this time.
Mhm.
I think I covered pretty much everything, or everything
Okay.
to be covered was covered.
Do you wish we saw more of Colin and his dad? We had that little bit
Um,
with the face touching, and then it goes to Mary and the uncle. The uncle had more time with Mary.
I think
Yeah.
compared to all the other connections of characters in this movie, I think it was a fine amount, or I guess even more than average amount of two characters interacting with each other, besides Colin and Mary. Um, so I think that was completely fine. I think if there more screen time needed to be shown, it should have been with other characters than uh, the uncle and Colin.
Okay. And I guess the last little bit that would go towards the supernatural route is before the horse in the fields, we get a shot of the garden, and we get to see presumably the aunt uh, putting her hand in the pond and walking away through the garden, uh, kind of cementing that she's kind of got a ghostly presence here. I don't know. Weird.
I
Did you
I didn't
view
think any of
supernatural as magic like Ryder does?
no.
Okay.
I do not, but
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't think anything to do with the ant. I do believe, now there was elements of supernatural in the film of the ant being the wind and whatnot, the guidance. But I don't think anything of her interacting with things, in the garden or whatever, was a physical presence or physical being. I think it could have been more memory or dream than, an actual ghost, because there didn't seem to be actually any sightings of anything of a ghost other than Colin saying like, "Are you a ghost?" So I don't know if Colin's seen like a ghost of his younger mom walking around the house or something, having a clue.
Yeah, the only thing I could think with interaction is when we see um, Dickon talking about the swing. The wind comes up again and pushes it,
Yeah,
but that's probably the closest thing.
yeah,
But yeah, I think she's just there as a guidance figure and to call the uncle back. Pretty
gotcha.
much it.
It's
All
funny
right.
the wind ghost of the ant. I mean, with what I think it is, does remind me of another movie that has a potential wind ghost. Huh.
What would that be?
That's a movie called Simon Birch,
You just
which
watched that, didn't you?
recently of this time of recording I did, and sometime in the
How
future it'll
appropriate.
probably be a one of our points to cover. If you're a fan or whatnot, you can let us know, and maybe we can speed it along and get it a earlier pick. But you know, or any. I'm sure we. I'm. I don't think we've even covered this. I think listeners can give recommendations. It's not necessarily
I
set in stone of what we're going with,
think
right?
I think I brought that up in podcast 0, um, but we didn't really like deep dive into that or anything.
Okay. I mean, of course. Well, first off, they're complete. Anyone listening is completely fine and free to give a recommendation of something. That is completely fine. Whether we'll cover it or not, I don't. Hopefully, we will.
No guarantees.
Yeah.
We'll definitely see that you recommended it. See, yeah. All right. I guess it's a summary and rating from you.
Okay. Being that Ryder left and I'm in charge of this, I have to get that for the YouTube watchers,
Oh, you don't have
listeners.
it up yet?
No, I'll get it.
All right.
I'll get it. Don't worry.
Oh, I'll cover something while you do that then. So,
There we go.
oh well, that was fast.
I got it.
Go ahead then.
Oh shoot. Summary. This movie was could have been better. I'll say that. This could have been a better movie. Do you know which number of iteration this one was in the how many are made?
I believe it's either the third or fourth.
Okay. Without seeing any of them, I don't know how this squares up to the other movies already made or the ones that came after it to place it like, is this the best version of the Secret Garden? Is this the worst, middle? Who knows? But I can only really judge it off of this one because it's the only one I've seen. Um, so I definitely think the pacing could have been way better. There was parts that to me were just slow, which got to me the boring parts, and I think that's what Ryder was also talking about, like some boring parts until it got a little engaging for him to get back into it, which is him. He said he was tilting back and forth. Boy, it could have been better. I don't know if they needed more ghost stuff to make it a little more magical in that realm of it. I don't know if they needed more. I do think they needed more character stuff of the garden. I think that might be one of my main problems of this iteration of the Secret Garden is that the garden's barely in the movie or used really. Um, and it's fine from its all the perspective of Mary. That's okay, but I do wish like Mary had more with the garden of like other characters or could see through like looking out her window. If she looked out her window and saw the uncle like going past the garden, maybe like just putting his hand like where the door is and not going in, but like thinking about it like his wife and then hand down and walking away. I think that would have been nice. I know just more of a show not tell kind of thing.
I
So yeah.
I have a question for you. You seem to be caught up on the name being secret. So what if it was like Mary's Wonders? What would you would that change your thought process on anything?
I think so. I think it would have been a more fitting title then if it was Mary's Wonders because it's focused on Mary and But it's to me a title was focused on kind of an importance of whatever it is. So being called the Secret Garden is an importance, and it is a high importance. But I don't, from what I watched, I don't think the Secret Garden gave the ability for Colin to walk. I don't think the Secret Garden um, was a like a drawing of happiness to fix the gloomy world around. Like I don't think it had that magical presence to it. So I think it just needed to be a little more important, or maybe like if a little plot point was the uncle was upset about losing his wife, and he's like, oh, we're just going to tear down the garden, and then Mary like gets rebellious and defensive, and it's like, no, you can't, and have like that conversation with it. And Medlock intervenes and is like, you spoiled brat, like don't talk back to him, or whatever. Think that would have been a little more to give more importance of how others see the garden, because it seemed Medlock just it's locked and kept away, not opposed to the aunt's room because she could actually see the aunt's room, or not. Excuse me, not knowing of the aunt's room is different than the garden because she knows of the garden. In terms of Medlock, so I think most of the servants, if not all servants, know of its existence,
Yeah,
especially the groundskeeper. But I believe it is set rule of not touching it or fixing it and keeping it as is. That's why it's overgrown. I just think it needed more character talking kind of things. Kind of like I guess a crazy example is like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Like at the very beginning, how like everyone in town knows of the factory. It's all closed and no one goes in and everything, but they know of its existence, and they like anyone can talk about it in a conversation. I think the garden should have had more that approach with the people in the movie.
sure. Okay. Yeah, because we only get it through outside sources of it being the groundskeeper and Martha pretty much talking about it outside the main cast. So I suppose building up the wonder or the mystery of the garden through others. Sure.
Yeah.
What about your rating?
Oh, okay. Ratings. I'll go with objective first. Objectively, I'm going to give this, if I can make this work.
For our YouTube viewers,
Yes, I apologize,
Sprinks
YouTube.
is practicing what Ryder would usually do for our rating scales and stuff. I can cover something while you try to
Go
figure that
ahead.
out.
I'm gonna try to
Uh,
figure this out.
All right. So I guess I'll go with my summary. I
Ah, I got it.
I have not. Okay. All right.
Sorry,
Well, do
sorry,
your
sorry,
rating
sorry,
then.
sorry. I apologize. This is so my objective, I'm giving a 6.5 because I think the the setting's good. I think a lot of it's natural. I mean, just the lighting at the earthquake thing was very off to me because it didn't seem like any other artificial lighting was used. It was all outside. I don't know if the night lighting was actually all from the moonlight or anything, but it did seem that way looking at the house and the transition shots and the part of like Mary looking through the window. That all seemed pretty natural to me. So I think the lighting was very good. Um, the mansion was a phenomenal set. Um, you said a lot of money was put into the garden. The garden looked very good. Um, so I do like. I think the whole setting, everything was nice. I think the time period helped. Then again, it was based off a book, so I presume that's when the book was set or was written to set around. But you said it was written in 1901, was it?
No, it was written in 1911, but the story takes place in 1901.
Okay.
So it takes place 10 years before it was written.
Okay. That makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, I think that was fitting for the tone of the movie that needed to go in place of how things interacted. Um, the animals were really cool, like animal interaction. But and the music was very just track A, track B. It was either like whimsical up or it was moody, depressing. It wasn't. It didn't really have much to it. It did feel very background, and the acting was okay, I guess, for the most part. Most of the acting was just set on kids, so they did get the point across of being like bratty and whatnot. But I wouldn't say it's exceptional acting from anyone. Maggie Smith, I would say, was probably the best actress in the whole film. But then again, that's Maggie Smith. I
Yeah,
just
I
think
think she just came off of 2 Golden Globes or something. She just had 2 awards before she got cast in this.
Oh, phenomenal.
I don't remember what the awards specifically were though.
I do think and this is kind of going with Ryder, or what Ryder might say, but I think the writing and the dialogue was not that good, especially based off a book. I don't know if it was really adapted from the screenplay, um, or just actual dialogue taken from the book and writing. I don't know, but I just think it was very mild. And I wouldn't say it was the acting, because I mean Colin's tantrum was definitely in acting. I don't know, something that heated or emotional in a conversation or something probably would have been good. Yeah, the plot, and the plot. That's the other thing. I don't know what the purpose of this movie is trying to tell. Really, is it stay connected as a family? Maybe I don't. It just seemed not very purposeful or something. I don't really know how to describe it. Very just bland. Not not boring. That's not the word I would use, but just kind of maybe one note. And because of that, I give my subjective scale a 3.5.
All right. I figured you guys would be on the lower side. I didn't think it'd be that low, but interesting. I did get Sinister's rating for this,
Oh,
and
perfect.
he gave it a 5, and he said he'd give any reasons in the recap if he's able to make a recap.
Gave it a 5.
Yep,
Nice. And then Writers was subjective 2.
subjective 2. Yeah, and objective 5.5 or
5
6.
and a
He
half.
didn't really give a specific. I will bring up. I took a screenshot of the Rotten Tomatoes to see if we were off base or if the general public are a little bit.
Yeah.
So, with I'm surprised how many people rated this movie for audience scores. So the critics gave it 88%, and the audience gave it 80%, with over 100,000 ratings.
Wow.
Very good ratings through Rotten Tomato and the other sites. I didn't screenshot that though. For me, I'll go subjective first. Like I said, it's a childhood film. Watched this with my sister a bit, and it captured a lot of the childhood whimsy that you have when you used to play outside, which kids don't really do anymore. And I still get that feeling watching this, um, even though I don't go outside so much anymore. Still got that feeling, and it makes me feel happy. The characters, as they're not quite caricatures, but they aren't like full fledged complicated characters either. They're just kind of normal. Um, I think are decent enough to where they're believable in their actions, which doesn't really screw things up for me. Like when they're irritating, they're supposed to be irritating, and that makes it fine for me. If they're irritating and it doesn't make sense, then that would bug me. But I think all the times they're irritating, it's justifiable to their characters.
Okay.
So I give it an 8 because I don't know, I got some nostalgia.
And that's your subjective?
Um, yeah, it's my subjective. My objective was quite difficult, not because I couldn't separate, but because everything is so safe in this. Uh, the acting isn't bad, but it isn't good. It's middle of the road, so it's technically good in that regards because it's not bad. I really like the visuals that they do with the landscape shots. I agree with your lighting that all of it seemed quite natural, even though obviously it's not all natural lighting in all scenes. Um, the the setting feels real. Uh, Good attention to detail. The characters don't contradict themselves. I don't. I think they all work for their actions. It all makes sense to me. Medlock as a villain is air quotes, or I guess antagonist, is pretty weak. She's I don't know. She doesn't really stop them from doing anything. and she doesn't have too much reason to either. Just save Colin, sure, fine. The children actors were okay. They weren't the worst children actors. They weren't like Disney Channel extras or anything. I think they're good enough to be in a movie, but they don't stand out as excellent. I will throw out a couple facts I forgot in the beginning. Is Kirsten Dunst auditioned for the role of Mary and did not make it, obviously, and she cried when she was rejected.
Oh wow.
And Elijah Wood um, auditioned for. Why the heck am I blanking on his name now? Cripple. um,
Colin.
he auditioned for Colin. Yeah, obviously did not get it. So it was kind of surprising that they got two big name people before they were big names, because they would have been children actors here. And the hardest part, because everything makes sense in world, but the problem with me is that I didn't think there was an end goal, really. It's all character driven end goals. At the beginning, there's nothing that Mary is striving for. She has no goal in this movie. Her only goal is to keep the garden a secret and to make it alive, and she does not do a good job keeping it a secret. And Dickon is pretty much the one that brought it to life. So I'm going to give it an objective 7. It might be one of my most incorrect objective ratings. I'll let others decide. But this one was hard to rate because technically every element worked, but it just kind of seemed a little hollow in both the antagonist and just the overall plot, if you can even call this movie having a plot. Yeah,
Guess.
and I
Oh boy.
believe that's that.
Okay, this whole
Oh,
right. No, it's fine. This whole rating thing is hard for me to use. I'll say, not just categorizing thing, but like in the YouTube visual,
mhm,
it's been messy.
because
So
each one has to be a layer or something, right?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know how you're doing it. I guess that's it, unless you got something else to cover or any questions about my rating. I guess if you're still fiddling with the scale.
Feeling. I think I got it.
Okay.
So final thing, writer's subjective was a 2. His objective was a 5.5. My
Yeah.
subjective was a 3.5. Objective 6.5. Sinister gave it a 5 overall, and then you yourself, Crimson, gave it a 8 subjective with a 7 objective.
Yes.
Okay, I think I got it all right.
Right. Well, that'll be a farewell from my end. Ryder usually does the outro.
Oh, he
I don't know if
passed
you
it
want
on
to
to
do
me.
it.
Yeah, he passed it to me. Unfortunately, I don't have, a script to go off of. So thank you for listening. Be sure to, wherever you're listening from, if you're listening to YouTube, you get all the visuals for it. Otherwise, thank you for listening on Samsung Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, and I'm sure there's
Castbox.
Castbox Media. That's it. That's the other one. And I'm sure there's 2 I'm forgetting, but don't make me think I'm not forgetting you personally. I just don't remember the name of where you're listening from. Sorry, but yes, thank you for listening to this episode. Season 4, episode 3.
Yeah, I
Sweet.
think so.
I'm keeping track. And as always, we had Geeky Writer and
Crimson Ruin.
and I'm Sprinks. And we will see you. I'll take writer's, I guess, end quote. And we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Toodaloo.